The name itself suggests a predominantly Chinese style. Its geographical location is very close to a well-known area, just over 10 kilometers in a straight line from their company. The total area of the house is over 1,200 square meters, with the building occupying more than 380 square meters. It has one basement level and two above-ground levels, with an independent courtyard of over 800 square meters. The courtyard is designed simply, featuring gray bricks and white eaves, with most of the space left open, surrounded by a ring of simple greenery and several newly planted landscape trees. The interior decoration style is also simple and elegant, focusing on practicality, which suits the aesthetic of the two individuals. The first floor has a living room of over 200 square meters, along with a separate dining room, kitchen, a room for the elderly, and a children's room, ensuring that hosting meals at home won't feel too cramped. The second floor includes a master bedroom, two secondary bedrooms, a living room, and an independent study, providing a space that is neither too spacious nor too small, sufficient for their use. Descending to the basement reveals a small gym facing south, with a row of windows at the top allowing sunlight to stream in. Below the windows, a few commonly used fitness machines are placed against the wall, while the center of the room features a ping pong table and a billiards table. There is also a media room of over 70 square meters to the north, along with two independent rooms that can serve as storage spaces. Zhang Fan instantly liked this house. Its size was just right, and it wouldn't feel too cramped when entertaining guests, especially in the open courtyard, where he could practice martial arts in the morning without being watched in a park. The previous owner of this house purchased it as an investment and had never renovated it. This year, they planned to finish the decoration for occasional stays. But due to financial difficulties, only half of the work was completed, which led to a hurried sale, with an asking price of 150 million. It should be negotiable. Lida observed their reactions and quickly introduced the property. Are there any other places? Let us take a look at everything first. Li Hong, who had been a vice president for over half a year, wasn't easily swayed. Even if she had made up her mind, she maintained her composure. Observing her expression, Zhang Fan found it hard to gauge whether she was satisfied or not. They later viewed two other private residences, both of which offered tranquility in a bustling area with independent courtyards. One was near Dawei Temple on South Zhongwankan Street, with one above-ground level and one basement level. A usable area of over 600 square meters, featuring a glass-roofed independent courtyard of over 100 square meters filled with flowers, leaving only a narrow path for passage. However, this house felt a bit small, and neither of them was particularly satisfied. The second property was a traditional courtyard house located in an alley within Zizaman, covering over 900 square meters. Its architecture was ancient in style, and the interior decoration and furniture were vintage replicas, giving it a strong sense of history. It was said to have been passed down since the Republic of China era, nearly 100 years ago. While the exterior looked very traditional, the interior had been modernized with complete facilities like kitchen and bathroom, not affecting the living experience. How do we park here? The width of the alley barely allows entry, and turning around seems difficult. Zhang Fan asked. There's no choice. Parking has to be done outside. This flaw has always kept the price down. If the alley were a bit wider and a garage could be built in the yard, the price of this house would rise by at least 30%. Li Da explained helplessly. Brotherly, are these the only places? Is there anywhere else? Li Hong asked. Sister, within the limited areas of Xiqing and Haidian that you specified, we also need to consider the convenience for future school enrollment for the kids. I contacted these few places in just one night. Otherwise, if you give me half a day, I can take you to see more tomorrow morning. Lida realized that his wife's former colleague was not easy to deal with, and it seemed that earning this commission would not be straightforward. Who would have thought these two had changed so much? More than a year ago, when they were looking for a rental, their conditions were even worse than his. Back then, he had a condescending attitude. Although he later heard they won the lottery and bought a house through him, their situation was not much different from his own. Their place was just over 100 square meters, still part of the middle class. Both were newcomers. Nothing remarkable. Then came the moment of witnessing a miracle. Unexpectedly, the seemingly unremarkable Zhang Fan turned out to be a super potential stock, dabbling in artificial intelligence, autonomous driving, and now developing humanoid robots. He truly soared to great heights, amassing a fortune of over $100 billion in just 1 year. It was something he had never even dreamed of, yet it happened right beside him. Every time he mentioned it, no one believed him and instead laughed at him. Thinking of this, Li Da's mindset calmed down. Indeed, they were no longer in the same class. The fact that they could still come to him to buy a house and treated him as a friend was already enough to give him face. He couldn't be too ungrateful. Today, he had treated them like ordinary clients, which seemed a bit excessive. Such friends were capital just by knowing them. And he needed to maintain the relationship well. Seeing Li Hong's expression, he sensed something was off. Oh no, he needed to discuss this with his wife and come up with a plan to make amends. Zhang Fan and Li Hong returned home, and it was just past 11 o'clock. They had left around 8, so it had only been a little over 3 hours. I think that house at Xiangshan Tingxin is quite good. Why are you still not satisfied? Zheng Fan asked. You're just too easy to fool. Not making any progress at all. Li Hong laughed as she scolded him. The 2 places we visited earlier are already among the top luxury homes in the whole city. How could he possibly fool us? The houses are right there. They can't just disappear. Does he dare to deceive us? You're still colleagues with Chengya, Zheng Fan said. Confused. If you had consulted me from the start, I wouldn't have let you find him. This person is too slick. When buying this house, he took advantage of our lack of market knowledge, and we ended up spending at least an extra million. This time, he is even bolder, trying to sell us a few unsellable houses. And the prices are still high, treating us like last year's unsuspecting buyers. This person's perspective is limited, Li Hong said, expressing her disdain for Li Da. Is it really that bad? I think Brother Li is quite sincere towards us. Zheng Fan still seemed unconvinced. You still don't believe it? Just for the house we saw at Xiangshan, he dared to quote 15 million, treating us like novices. After saying this, Li Hong picked up her phone and made a call, saying a few sentences before hanging up. A couple of minutes later, her phone received a message. Li Hong opened it and showed it to Zheng Fan. This is a price list for properties for sale at Xiangshan Tingxin Villa, and the house they were looking at is included, priced at 120 million, with a note indicating it is negotiable, meaning there is room for a discount. If I had agreed at that time, no matter how much of a discount, it wouldn't have gone down by 30 million, right? Lida is really taking advantage of familiarity. It's fine for him to earn a commission. But if he makes money and then turns around to treat people like fools, that's quite off-putting. So, will we still look at houses with him tomorrow? Zheng Fan's opinion of this person changed drastically, feeling quite disgusted. Let us see how he behaves. If he continues to play dumb, we want to confront him and just let it slide. If he sincerely apologizes, for the sake of Cheng Jia, we can let this go. After all, we've known each other for so many years, but we definitely can't buy a house through him. I'll tell him. You don't need to worry about it. Li Hong had already made up her mind. Buying a house involves so many intricacies. Zheng Fan suddenly realized that the woman he had spent a year with had changed so much that he hardly recognized her. Noticing Zheng Fan's unusual gaze, Li Hong curiously asked, "What is wrong? Is my makeup smudged?" After saying that, she took out a makeup mirror to check closely. He didn't know when it started, but the nurse who used to go without makeup had begun to spend time on her appearance every day. I remember you never wore makeup before. Now that you're pregnant, why are you wearing makeup? Isn't that bad for the fetus? Zheng Fan wondered. As they slept together every day but always had different morning routines, something he had never paid attention to before. What do you know about makeup, you straight man? The work requirements are different. Before, light makeup was fine, but now that I'm a company leader, not doing it well would be embarrassing. My makeup products are all specialized and won't cause any harm, Li Hong said while touching up her makeup. He didn't really understand this. To him, whether Li Hong wore makeup or not didn't seem to change much, and he couldn't see the point of all the effort. Why bother with makeup at home? Isn't it a hassle? I'll go to the company for a bit. I have nothing to do in the afternoon anyway. Don't worry about the house. If Lida calls you, just push it onto me. In just a few sentences, she had finished her makeup, grabbed her bag, and left. Work can really change a person. If Li Hong were to go back to being a nurse, she definitely wouldn't be able to handle it now. Every day, she meets with the hospital director, deputy director, or leaders from the hospital's supervisory departments. She has met several mayors and vice mayors. And she doesn't even need to personally meet department heads. The contracts discussed start from several million, and contracts worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions are not uncommon. The little nurse who used to feel incredibly happy with just a few thousand yuan saved in a year was a thing of the past. In the beginning, she was still cautious about contacting clients, fearing that a careless mistake might offend someone and affect business. But after 6 months, the company's situation had completely opened up, and the trend had shifted. Now, various hospitals proactively reach out for contact. The intelligent diagnostic system, surgical robots, and nursing robots, known as the 3 major weapons, have gained a great reputation for significantly improving hospital efficiency, especially in second- and third-tier city hospitals. With the intelligent diagnostic system and surgical robots, the medical standards, to some extent, are directly on par with top-tier hospitals. There are over 1,500 top-tier hospitals nationwide, and the production of robots is limited, making them highly sought after by these hospitals. Every day, various connections are made to secure early access to robots in order to enhance hospital efficiency and performance. Customers actively reach out, and as a company leader, one must not be too arrogant. Maintaining relationships is crucial in business, especially since most major clients are public institutions like hospitals, which should not be easily offended. Having more such relationships is also a valuable resource. In the past 6 months, Li Hong feels she has learned more than in the previous 20 years and recognizes the importance of perspective in a person's life. Chapter 173. The big courtyard. After a busy day at the company, it was nearly 6 in the evening when she finally left. Brainwave Medical has not yet accepted any financing, and the four main shareholders are Zheng Fan, Su Kan, Shi Xian, and Li Hong herself, who holds shares converted from options. Most of the remaining shares are under Brainwave Holdings and Brainwave Technology. It has already been decided that she will succeed as president, which is a done deal. Li Hong still does not want to leave room for criticism and aims to achieve better results that will earn her respect. Without a glamorous resume, she cannot tolerate the skeptical looks from others. Only by putting in more effort can she feel secure. It is undeniable that she has benefited from Zheng Fan's influence in attaining this position, but her contributions to the company leave her with a clear conscience. Speaking of influence, who in the company isn't benefiting from her husband's status? Thinking of this makes Li Hong feel a bit helpless. Her husband is several years older than her and sometimes behaves childishly, viewing things too simply. However, without that innocence, perhaps she wouldn't have been moved in the first place. She never thought she would end up with a boyfriend shorter than herself. She remembers when their relationship was first confirmed. Many people in the hospital openly or subtly mocked her, but now who doesn't envy her? As she drove into the neighborhood, she spotted Chengya and Lido waving at her. Li Hong smiled, relieved they still had some sense. Otherwise, she wouldn't have any friends left, inviting them upstairs. Chengya sincerely apologized, while Lido was exceedingly humble, wearing a regretful expression. Li Hong worried he might actually slap himself in the face. With such acting skills, he could have been an actor. Despite guessing their intentions, Li Hong found it hard to refuse them outright. She agreed to continue house hunting with Li De the next day, considering today's event settled. When the moment came, Li Hong realized she couldn't be as decisive as those strong women. She was still easily softened, which seemed to indicate she couldn't become a strong woman herself. The next day, Sunday, Zheng Fan and Li Hong accompanied Li De to see houses all day. They first visited several famous villa areas in Xishan, followed by a large flat near Financial Street priced at nearly 200,000 per square meter, reportedly a scarce resource with a price tag, but no market. These houses were highly coveted, with neighbors who were either wealthy or influential, as well as a courtyard house by the Hohai, with a price well above several targets. Lita swore it was definitely the lowest price. The houses are quite nice. Anyway, they are all more spacious and luxurious than the places they currently live in. Zheng Fan still can't forget the unfinished earthen courtyard at Xiangshan Tingqin and always compares it wherever he goes, feeling that something is lacking. After hearing his thoughts, Lita slapped his thigh. So you prefer spacious courtyards? The simpler the better? Are you thinking of planting some vegetables in the future? Although I come from a rural background, I really don't know how to grow vegetables and have no intention of doing so. I just feel more at ease practicing martial arts in my own yard. The villas and courtyards we've seen are all quite small, which feels quite stifling. There are a few larger courtyards, but they are overly decorated with all sorts of fancy landscapes, lacking open space, making it inconvenient for practicing. After looking at so many houses, Zheng Fan's vague thoughts from a few days ago became more concrete. What others see as luxury homes may not necessarily suit him. How about this? I'll inquire further to see if there are any large independent courtyards available. It's not easy to find within the fourth ring, but it shouldn't be too hard outside of it. Since you're not in a hurry to move, we can take our time to build something that meets your preferences. Lita suggested. Thank you for your trouble, brotherly. Li Hong replied. Hey, don't be so polite. It makes me feel awkward. I'm trying to atone for my past mistakes. Lita said with a grin. I've grown up around the area from Sijiking to Wanlu, so I know a few people. I won't let you down this time. His expression was almost like he was making a solemn promise. After a few days of effort, Li Da indeed found a place, not far south of Changchun Bridge. There's an auto repair shop with a land area of over 900 square meters, and it comes with an independent courtyard in the back, which is up for sale. Buying it and renovating it would be just what Zheng Fan wanted. This location is between the third and fourth rings, with a river on one side and a road on the other, in a relatively independent area, making it convenient for commuting to work and school. To show them around was a middle-aged man named Yi Sihua, the owner of the repair shop. Yi was a bit overweight, with a high hairline and slick-back hair, speaking loudly with a strong local accent, and had a friendly tone with Li Da. I've known Z since we were kids. We just run in different circles, and haven't interacted much. But our families have lived in this area for generations, so we know each other's backgrounds well. This repair shop was started by my old man, and it hasn't changed hands in over 30 years. I have one condition: the courtyard and the repair shop, along with the land, must be sold together. Ye's ancestors were from the 8 Banners, specifically the Red Banner. His grandfather was involved with the Underground Party and served as a village leader for several decades after the liberation. His father participated in the self-defense counterattack. So the whole family has a solid reputation. Lito was introducing this owner's family history to Zheng Fan and Li Hong. Is buying your factory inclusive of land usage rights? Is it leased or owned? How is the duration calculated? Zheng Fan needed to clarify this first. Yi Sihua waved his hand and said, I can't explain the details clearly. You have a lawyer, right? Call your lawyer over. and I'll let them review all the various documents and certificates. Once they confirm everything is in order, we can discuss the price. How does that sound? Zheng Fan asked Li Hong to contact Chen Fei, and he continued to tour with Yi Sihua. The large auto repair factory was empty, with no one around. There were offices, staff dormitories, display shelves, spare parts warehouses, a luxuriously decorated reception room, various specialized testing and maintenance equipment, and over a dozen repair stations of different functions. There were also 2 automated car wash bays, indicating that the business had once thrived. To the south of the factory, there was a large open parking lot enclosed by walls, filled with hundreds of old vehicles stacked together, occupying most of the space. There were also dozens of seemingly new vehicles parked on the ground, with various models and logos, which left Zheng Fan amazed. These were all scrapped cars collected for parts. It could be considered turning waste into treasure. However, now it was no longer viable, and with the business declining sharply, they could only sell scrap metal. Yi Sihua said with a hint of disappointment. Brother C, this year with the popularity of autonomous driving, car sales are quite good. Why is your business not doing well? Lida asked, puzzled. Let me clarify. I only admire Brother Zheng, bringing glory to the country. You are the one. Yi Sihua gave a thumbs up to Zheng Fan in praise. You flatter me. I just have a lot of luck. Zheng Fan said a bit shyly. You deserve it. To be honest, when your autonomous driving program was first released last year, my auto repair shop made a considerable profit. The modification of a car started at 10,000. And I made over 50 million in a month. Yi Sihua recalled with excitement. Li Da exclaimed, that's outrageous profit. Is money that easy to make? But you need technical strength for that. Our reputation is good, and many car owners queue up for modifications. Although domestic cars are inexpensive, many come standard with panoramic cameras, making modifications easier, but not worth much. We later focused on imported luxury cars, which required modifications to the panoramic cameras first. That had some difficulty, so we naturally had to raise the price. Those who can afford luxury cars won't mind the extra cost. The first car we modified was a Range Rover, and we made 200,000. The money came so quickly. Yi Sihua still felt excited recalling that time. Our parts cost only a few thousand, and the most expensive modification was for a Cullinan, which directly charged 60,000. The money earned during that period was more than what I made in the past few years combined. It's a pity that good times don't last. Now there are autonomous vehicles everywhere, and accidents are too rare. Now, after paying the workers, there's barely any revenue left. I even have to subsidize the costs and look for other avenues. Yi Sihua said with some regret. Autonomous driving has only been out for a year. There should still be quite a few cars that haven't been modified, right? Lida asked, confused. You need to ask Brother Zheng about that. To protect our legal rights and those of the authorized car manufacturers, we have implemented technical restrictions. Zheng Fan explained that although his actions were reasonable and legal, he still felt a bit embarrassed in front of the owner of the repair shop who was affected by the situation. Yi Sihua, on the other hand, was quite open-minded about it. He patted Zheng Fan on the shoulder and said, don't be shy, my friend. You are earning money fairly and squarely based on your skills, and you deserve every bit of it. To be honest, we are the ones who are just taking advantage of the free food and drinks. What you did is quite fair. The modified autonomous driving system could still be used for a month before any restrictions were applied to later modifications. They returned to the repair shop and continued chatting in Yi Sihua's lavishly decorated office. Lida, curious, asked, what kind of restrictions were implemented? I was going to modify my car, but later I decided to just buy a new one because I was worried it wouldn't be reliable. Zheng Fan replied, after modification, it could be used for a month, but there would be a prompt every time it started. After that month, it couldn't be used anymore. And further modifications were not allowed. I insisted on keeping a 1-month trial period. I really admire this aspect of you, my friend. You are turning the tables and making the most of their resources. Their licensing fees have multiplied, and they charge a monthly usage fee for each vehicle. Domestic car manufacturers offer much lower prices, almost equivalent to free usage. Yi Sihua continued to praise him. They spent over half an hour in the office before Zheng Fang and Chen Fei arrived one after another to verify various documents presented by Yi Sihua. It was surprising to find that such a large area was residential land with a 70-year property right. However, there were restrictions. Once purchased, it could not be developed into separate lots for sale, only for personal residence or rental, and there were also height restrictions, which could not exceed 30 meters. After connecting to several ministry databases, the superintelligent system broke down data barriers between departments, allowing instant access to property rights and personal credit information for a small fee. Chen Fei verified everything and nodded in confirmation to Zheng Fan. I admire what you're doing, and since I consider you a friend, I won't ask for too much. For this more than 6 acres of land and everything on it, including the unfinished small building and the entire repair shop with all its licenses and equipment, as well as those old broken vehicles to the south, I'm offering you a price of 1.8 million. If you agree, we can sign the contract and handle the paperwork today. Yi Sihua stated his offer. The price seemed high, but considering the location and area, it was actually reasonable. When factoring in the scarcity of such properties, it was quite a bargain. Lida had initially planned to help negotiate a lower price, but upon hearing this offer, he swallowed his words. Although they grew up in the same area, he realized that he was not on the same level as Yi Sihua, who had never included him in his circle back in the day. Without Zhang Fan's name, he wouldn't even be acknowledged. They didn't even have the right to hear the offer. Thank you for valuing our friendship. I won't be pretentious about haggling. If you need my help in the future, I will do my best. Once the conversation reached this point, Zhang Fan decided not to linger. He was indeed quite satisfied with this deal. Li Hong had been sitting beside Zhang Fan, listening to their conversation without much input. At this moment, they seemed to have a tacit understanding. With just a glance, Zhang Fan could grasp her intentions. Seeing her approval, he made the decision right away. Contracts worth over 100 million cannot be signed casually. No matter how pleasant the words may sound, it's still the first meeting, and the mutual trust is insufficient. Now that both parties have agreed on the price, Yi Sihua takes them to a nearby law firm where he has trusted lawyers. The lawyers from both sides negotiate and draft the contract, witnessing each other's signatures and fingerprints, and begin the process for land transfer and changes in corporate ownership. Among other formalities, as a leading city in the nation, Yanjing has been the first to introduce superintelligent systems in various administrative departments, such as administration, prosecution, courts, public security, and transportation, to assist in management and services, enhancing work precision and efficiency, yielding excellent results, and is now gradually being promoted in various regions. They have now introduced humanoid robots into various government service centers. With just a few dozen robots on rotation, they have achieved 24-hour service, allowing business to be conducted at any time of the day, without breaks throughout the year. If it weren't for the need to grant the robots vacation rights, they wouldn't even need to rotate. Just plugging them in would allow them to work continuously for years. This level of work intensity could last for decades. It's just the batteries that need to be replaced. The series of procedures they undertook this time, which would have taken at least half a month under normal circumstances, or even 1 to 2 months if there were slight delays, were completed in less than 3 days. Zhang Fan used his company, Crawling Technology, to acquire Yi Sihua's auto repair shop and all associated land and property rights. The auto repair shop was renamed Crawling Auto Repair Service Company. The payment was transferred to the other party's account, and Zhang Fan received the new business license, land ownership documents, and other certificates. The land and the buildings and equipment on it now belonged to them. Since they had bought it, they naturally couldn't leave it idle. Zhang Fan hired 50 robots and had Yuan Yuan lead them to reopen the auto repair shop. With fewer traffic accidents, the demand for regular vehicle maintenance remained. And with the increase in autonomous vehicles, the robots provided more compatible services, ensuring transparency in pricing and reliability. Initially, the business wasn't thriving. The robots couldn't be idle all day, so part of the yard was renovated and the buildings were remodeled. Yi Sihua provided the original architectural design plans, which were minimalistic in style. Both of them agreed that no changes were needed, and they ordered the necessary building materials and tools according to the design requirements, leaving the rest to the robots. Li Hong continued to go to work, while Zhang Fan took Yuan Yuan to the auto repair shop during the day to oversee operations. The robots were highly self-motivated, so there was no need for constant supervision. Zhang Fan simply found something he was interested in and was filled with enthusiasm. These robots could easily learn a professional skill. All they needed was to connect to the internet to download relevant information. Both building renovations and vehicle maintenance are technical trades, and any robot could quickly master them. Of course, the more they practiced, the more proficient they became. For the robots, this was an innate skill, and each of them had exceptional hands-on abilities. Since Yuan Yuan organized and established the robot self-regulation guidelines under Zhang Fan's guidance and became the chairperson of the self-discipline committee, she has self-studied various courses such as management, economics, accounting, psychology, sociology, and marketing, transforming from a caretaker into a professional manager. After receiving a task from Zhang Fan, she quickly formulated a detailed work plan, selecting 10 assistants from 50 robots, dividing them into 10 groups, and assigning specific tasks. She also contacted an advertising company to design and change the auto repair shop sign, create promotional materials, and arrange for a clothing factory to customize work uniforms, among other tasks. Unlike Zhang Fan, who strolled around with his hands behind his back, Yuan Yuan directed the 50 robots to start working in an orderly manner. The ordered construction materials arrived, and she organized the robots to help unload the truck, check the packaging, count the quantities, and place everything in suitable locations. Their proficiency made it seem like they were seasoned workers, leaving the delivery personnel astonished. Recently, the promotion of robots has gained significant attention, but only a few people have had the chance to see and interact with them. With their legal identities established, they no longer needed to be as discreet as Yuan Yuan was when she first went out. Yuan Yuan, on the other hand, had developed the habit of wearing a baseball cap and a mask whenever she went out. Her movements, pace, and speaking tone were indistinguishable from those of an ordinary person. Unlike the somewhat stiff movements of the newly manufactured robots, the delivery workers did not notice any difference in her until they left. 4 of the 10 robot groups were responsible for tidying up the auto repair shop and familiarizing themselves with the equipment. They brought over a few scrapped vehicles from the southern yard for disassembly and research, working busily and systematically, indicating a clear division of labor among them. One group was in charge of security for the 2 yards, with 2 stationed at the entrance and 3 wandering around checking the security equipment. Their work appeared the most relaxed, prompting Zheng Fan to decide to use them for morning exercises in the future. The remaining 5 groups of robots were assigned to work in the northern yard, clearing weeds, leveling the ground, and organizing construction debris inside the small building in preparation for future renovations. All the robots seemed to be busy, while Yuan Yuan followed Zheng Fan around. She directed the robots without needing to speak, as their internal communication was highly efficient, sharing information without interrupting their tasks. While accompanying Zheng Fan, she also managed multiple tasks. Driven purely by curiosity, Zheng Fan was just observing the activity. The materials and tools for the small building in the backyard had not yet arrived, so he shifted his attention to the front auto repair workshop, watching several robots disassemble a car. The group he was observing was dismantling a black Lincoln Navigator, a luxury vehicle worth over $1 million. It appeared to have been in a rollover accident, with multiple deformations and paint loss, and all the windows shattered, making it look quite unfortunate. However, there were few significant damages. The doors could still open normally, and the interior looked relatively new, unfortunately abandoned by its owner. After the robots connected the vehicle to specialized equipment for inspection, they added some gasoline, engine oil, and coolant, connected an external battery, and surprisingly, it started successfully. They then checked the electrical systems, lights, and display screens one by one, finding that most were functioning normally. They began cleaning up the shattered glass, disassembling the deformed parts, and preparing for bodywork and painting, seemingly getting ready to practice on this vehicle. How many kilometers has this car traveled? Zheng Fan asked their team leader, a sharp and capable female robot named Wu Qi. 12,000 kilometers. It's still quite new. If the required parts don't exceed 100,000, let's try to fix it. Zheng Fan instructed. This car is already scrapped. Even if it's repaired, it can't be on the road. Spending that much money on parts is a waste. Yuan Yuan, who was behind him, advised. It's still so new. It's a pity to scrap it directly. Look into whether it's possible to have this car re-inspected and re-registered. Zheng Fan said, feeling a bit reluctant, as this was a luxury car he once dreamed of. It's impossible. The law clearly states that scrapped cars cannot be driven on the road, but the parts can be removed and sold if they pass inspection. Yuan Yuan immediately provided him with an answer, shattering his fantasies. This was a new car from last year, and it was scrapped right after the break-in period due to an accident. Clearly, the owner isn't short on money. The 35T turbocharged engine is still brand new, and it's unfair that it can't be on the road after just over 10,000 kilometers. Wu Qi, take out the back seats of this car and find a way to install a generator so that these 2 scrap cars can serve as our backup power supply. Zheng Fan said, struck by a sudden idea. We have independent transformers, backup power, and a 100-kilowatt backup generator set here. Wu Qi reminded him. That's only 100 kilowatts. This engine has over 300 horsepower. It's much more powerful. You can't modify it, can you? Zheng Fan asked suspiciously, wondering if they could repair cars but not modify them. We need to purchase a separate generator and a lot of electrical components, which will be a significant investment. While Wu Qi spoke with him, she was already planning the implementation details in her mind. I see there are machine tools in the back. Use your intelligence to make the generator yourself. It will be more suitable for this car. The less important parts can be bought. This is a test for you, Zheng Fan encouraged, not knowing what kind of result they would achieve. After all, even if it was fixed, it couldn't be driven out. So it was better to create some inventions. Other groups, aside from Wu Qi's team, were dismantling cars, figuring out how to put them back together afterward. This also counted as practice for their skills, as there were no customers coming in, and they couldn't just sit idle. After watching them work for a while, feeling a bit bored and sleepy, Zheng Fan returned to the office, which had a break room with a small bed. He lay down, closed his eyes, and quickly fell asleep. Yuan Yuan stood by the office wall, starting to charge while continuing to work. With so many robots at it, many places inside and outside the building had chargers installed for their convenience to recharge whenever needed. Since his hospitalization last year, Zheng Fan had been sleeping well and rarely dreamed. Even if he stayed up until dawn and woke up at 5 in the morning, he remained energetic all day and seldom took naps. It was unusual for him to feel sleepy before noon this time, especially since he had been busy looking for a house and hadn't entered the game for over a week. As soon as he lay down and fell asleep, he dreamt about situations in the game, where he found himself back home, entering the game through the gaming pod, and everything felt just like usual. Waking up early to freshen up and attend court, Emperor Li Yin was once again absent, sending word for others to handle state affairs on their own, with a report to be made to him in the afternoon. This had recently become the norm, with the emperor only attending court 3 to 5 times a month, spending most of his time in the inner palace, rising only when the sun was high. In the inner palace, the emperor had no privacy, a fact well known among court officials. As usual, he dealt with disaster relief from various regions, appointments and dismissals of officials, and received envoys from foreign states. After dispersing the court, it was nearly noon, and he planned to rest for an hour before reporting to the emperor. Despite having been in office for over 2 years, the crown prince still needed to study. However, since there was no time in the morning, classes were moved to the afternoon, where a tutor would provide specialized instruction, allowing the prince to choose topics of interest in addition to those designated by the emperor. Today's lesson was given by Liu Yin, who had just been promoted to Minister of Revenue. He was a child prodigy, having served as a guest of the crown prince for 2 years, and later held various positions, including the governor of the capital and deputy minister of revenue, overseeing matters of finance, salt and iron, transport, currency minting, and taxes. He was well known in the court for his financial acumen, and Zheng Fan had specifically appointed him to explain the court's tax system. Chapter 176. A startling dream. The dream felt incredibly real and was particularly lengthy. Most importantly, its content connected seamlessly with Zheng Fan's last exit from the game, without any flaws. In the dream, he also spent a month in the game before exiting, opening the game pod, and seeing Yuan Yuan waiting outside for him. When he suddenly woke up, Zheng Fan, "We need to go back. It's time to prepare dinner," Yuan Yuan said as she stood by the bed and saw him open his eyes. "What time is it? How long did I sleep?" This was the first time Zheng Fan had slept so long during the day and even dreamt of something so vividly real. Everything felt strange. "You slept from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, a full 6 hours. Yuan Yuan replied calmly. "I entered the game pod in my dream, just like usual, and the time felt about the same." "It's so eerie." Zheng Fan had nothing to hide from her and expressed his confusion. "I can't answer your questions. You should seek answers at the company. Forget it, let us go home." The two of them left the office, where the robots outside were still busy. Wu Qi's team had completely dismantled the back seat of the Lincoln Navigator, and the body was undergoing repairs, which were nearly complete. One member was welding at the back of the vehicle, seemingly preparing to install a base to secure the generator. The sign at the auto repair shop had been replaced, a large red and white sign hanging above the entrance, with artistic fonts reflecting the sunset, creating a sense of tranquil beauty. The pre-booked autonomous taxi was waiting for them outside the door, and the two got in to head home. The robots worked at their own pace without the need for supervision, showcasing their unique advantages with 24-hour service, year-round. During Zheng Fan's sleep, some customers had already arrived for simple cleaning, maintenance, and service, which required no technical difficulty, just care and diligence to perform well. Yuan Yuan only needs to assign tasks and define responsibilities. She doesn't need to get involved with the work directly. Her primary role remains that of a caretaker, while she also takes on part-time roles as a bodyguard and a secretary. Those who are capable take on more work, and her score has consistently ranked first among all robots. To clear up her confusion, Zheng Fan entered the gaming chamber after dinner, only to find that he couldn't access the game, receiving a prompt that he had exceeded the game time. This meant that when he was dreaming during the day, it wasn't just a dream, he was actually entering the game. Achung, check the login address and device I used for the game today. Unable to access the game, Zheng Fan directly contacted the superintelligence in the office space. This situation felt a bit strange. The address was at the auto repair shop, but it wasn't connected through the shop's fiber optic broadband. It was through a mobile data card. The gaming chamber login number was Dendad 10359. Achung was nearly omniscient about online matters, but still struggled with real-world issues. He understood that Zheng Fan had logged in through someone else's gaming chamber, though he didn't know the reason. "I just took a nap there and dreamt of entering the game. Is that even possible? I didn't see any gaming chamber there. I was just lying in bed." Zheng Fan questioned, wondering if his brain had mutated again. "Master, the place where you sleep must have a brainwave analysis device near your head. When you dream, your brainwaves become more active, which might have unintentionally connected you to the device and entered the game. If it's a hidden device, then this is a listening incident targeted at you." Achung calmly analyzed. "All right, that's not too surprising. You investigate this device's information online, and I'll look for that thing." Concluding his conversation with Achung, Zheng Fan exited the gaming chamber. Knowing that Achung's guess was likely true, Zheng Fan felt a sense of relief. His brain wasn't mutating again. He was still adhering to the laws of physics. He hoped to become more capable, but only if he could control it. Suddenly becoming omnipotent only further proved the illusory nature of this world. Deep down, he didn't want to live in a virtual world, even if he could do anything in it. The break room in the auto repair shop manager's office was not large. totaling less than 30 square meters, including the bathroom. Zheng Fan, accompanied by Li Hong, soon found a small white plastic object behind the headboard of the bed. It was less than the size of a palm, rounded and cute, resembling a power bank, with no markings, just a special port where a wire connected directly to a socket hidden behind the headboard. What is this thing? Li Hong, confused, followed them over, still not understanding what had happened. After hearing Zheng Fan's explanation, she suddenly realized, this is even more advanced than our company's equipment. It's so small, yet integrates the functions of a gaming chamber. This must be a device taken from the gaming chamber, integrating brainwave amplification and analysis functions. Likely intended to eavesdrop on my brainwave signals, Zheng Fan had already formed a rough idea on the way. Are they trying to obtain some business secrets? What secrets do you have? Li Hong teased him. The other party must have learned about my training of a Cheng and is likely seeking my brainwave data to develop their own artificial intelligence. Or perhaps has some deceptive plans involving a Cheng, Zheng Fan speculated. So what should we do? Should we report it to the authorities? This matter definitely has something to do with that person, Yi Sihua. I was puzzled about how he could sell it so cheaply and handle the paperwork so smoothly. I really thought he was just your little fan, but it turns out he had ulterior motives. Li Hong reflected after the fact. This situation is too bizarre, and the investment is quite substantial. Yi Sihua is most likely just a pawn and is unaware, but the person who placed this thing definitely knows him. Let Ho Cheng deal with it. That's his job. Zheng Fan decided not to think about it anymore, as it was a waste of brain cells. When he received the call, Ho Cheng quickly arrived with a large team. 7 or 8 vehicles were filled with people, and professional equipment was being unloaded. Even more exaggerated were several chemical defense soldiers wearing gas masks, alongside individuals carrying devices akin to mine detectors, scanning the area. Following Ho Cheng onto a command vehicle, Zheng Fan finally spoke. Is it really necessary to make such a big fuss? Think of the worst-case scenario. You can't come here for the time being. We need to conduct a thorough inspection. Even then, we can't guarantee absolute safety. There are various eavesdropping methods out there, and brainwave monitoring has emerged. If they were to plant a remote-controlled bomb with radioactive materials, that wouldn't be impossible. Ho Cheng's expression was serious, lacking the usual ease. Isn't it a bit overboard to think someone wants to kill me? You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Zheng Fan was skeptical of his claims. Don't take it lightly. We didn't tell you earlier to avoid causing you panic, but we have already uncovered over a dozen plots targeting you. The earlier attempts were aimed at taking your life, but after a financing agreement was reached, such actions decreased. However, they're not completely absent. Don't you realize how many people's livelihoods you've disrupted? Chapter 177. Reality. Ho Cheng's stern words made Zheng Fan recognize the reality. His previously tedious and mundane life was merely an illusion, and that way of living had long since bid him farewell. The team of professionals did not find any bombs or radioactive materials, but they did not come back empty-handed. Zheng Fan's discovery of a power bank-shaped brainwave monitor led them to recover 3 more, along with over a dozen other miniature listening and spying devices. After interrogation, it turned out Yi Sihua was indeed unaware. The supervisor of the repair shop emerged as the prime suspect, as he was the one who disclosed to Li De that Yi Sihua was planning to sell the repair shop. Ho Cheng was unable to apprehend this person, and a Cheng used the Skynet surveillance system to verify that this individual had left the country by plane under a different identity the day before their transaction was completed. The gaming pods shipped out 7 months ago used commercially available general-purpose chips. Although they had encryption designs, the protection level was not high, and professionals could crack it after a certain period. This modified brainwave monitoring device had no effect on most people. Only a very few, like Zheng Fan, with relatively strong brainwave signals could, under certain conditions, pick up intermittent weak signals. Even if they could detect signals, these individuals could not log into the game through such faint signals, let alone experience it authentically. Interestingly, the monitoring device not only captured the brainwave signals of Zheng Fan, allowing him to successfully log into the game, but also transmitted the information from the game back into his brain without the auxiliary functions of the gaming pod. The next day, Zheng Fan logged into the game and confirmed that his experiences in the dream were indeed real, unlike his previous dreams that would become vague upon waking. This dream remained clear for a month. He verified the events that occurred in the dream within the game, all of which had actually happened. After taking the modified monitoring device to the company, Sure Xian disassembled it for research and found that the design was exceptionally advanced. It not only integrated several core chips from gaming pods, but also modified the brainwave amplification module to enhance its functionality. Additionally, it included a radio frequency transceiver function, enabling it to connect to nearby base stations for internet access. The sheer number of functions packed into such a small box was impressive, leaving him feeling inferior. Especially noteworthy was the module responsible for receiving and amplifying brainwave signals, which was significantly more powerful than the modules used in Sure Xian's designed gaming pod and helmet. This module could accurately transmit and receive brainwave signals from over 20 centimeters away. What kind of effect would it produce if integrated into their helmet for experiments? For Sure Xian, modifying the template was not difficult. He completed one in less than 2 hours. Zheng Fan placed the helmet beside his head for the experiment. What was challenging for him was entering that semi-dreamlike state again. He fell asleep quickly and rarely dreamed. If he lay down and fell asleep here, it would just be sleeping. Their experiment took place in the morning, and Zheng Fan was not sleepy at all, especially with several people watching, making it impossible for him to truly fall asleep. After lying comfortably in the chair for a long time without entering the game, he had to open his eyes. Zhang Song asked, "How is it? Did you enter the game?" There was no reaction. Zheng Fan analyzed. The last time was likely just a coincidence. I rarely sleep during the day or dream. We just happened to overlap that time. Try putting on the helmet again and see if there's any difference. Sure Xian suggested. Alright, I'll give it another shot. This time, he quickly entered the game, and the experience felt much more real compared to before. The gaming helmet primarily simulated audio and visual effects, but it still lacked the immersive feeling of the gaming pod. After experiencing it for a while, Zheng Fan logged out. How does it feel? Lu Yifan, who was continuously analyzing his brainwave signals, asked. The auditory and visual effects have improved, but other sensations are about the same. Zheng Fan replied honestly. It seems we should experience it in that semi-dreamlike state. Sure Xian. Turn off the audiovisual output of the helmet and let Zheng Fan try it on again. Zhang Song proposed. With the helmet directly on his head, the brainwave signals were very clear, allowing him to log into the game directly. Each person's brainwave signals are unique, even if recorded and used elsewhere. They could potentially be indistinguishable. For a super-intelligent entity like a Cheng, this dynamic information was fundamentally impossible to counterfeit. A simple verification question could easily expose any deception. The problem is that after logging in, the game returns information that feels completely blank in my mind. Just now, I logged in to test my sensory perceptions. After having a meal and some tea, I was about to practice writing when I exited. This time, I can't do anything upon logging back in. Could there be a problem? With this thought, I quickly exited the game. How is it going this time? Asked Sure Xian, who had been watching him. I feel like I logged in, but my mind is completely blank, and I can't feel anything. We were too optimistic. It's rare to encounter that situation like last time. Zhang Song sighed. Why don't you take the headset home and wear it while you sleep tonight to see if you can replicate the previous experience? Lu Yifan suggested with a smile. Haha, that is a good idea. Just afraid I might scare Li Hong at night. Sure Xian laughed, imagining how bizarre that scene would be. Sure Xian, you should also learn from him and modify the headset into a box. I can just put it under my pillow. Zheng Fan thought this method was worth trying. This proposal is great. We can order a batch, and all of us can put one under our pillows. Zheng Fan doesn't dream much, but many people do. Who knows, we might get unexpected results. Lu Yifan's mind was quick. If there are really results, then this spy has helped us a lot. Zheng Fan, your brainwave signals haven't been stolen by them, right? Zhang Song asked curiously. I had a Chung check, and there shouldn't be any. Even if they got apart, it wouldn't matter. It's like photos and recordings taken by paparazzi. They can't replace the real thing. Those people are a bit delusional. Even if I tried to replicate a Chung myself, I might not be able to do it. Zheng Fan replied dismissively. This experiment ended inconclusively, but it can't be said that there were no gains, just not as significant as expected. The simplified gaming device modified by Sure Xian quickly came out, with craftsmanship and design far superior to that spy device. The core chip used was Neuron 1, which naturally had higher computing power and security, and the network directly connected to household wireless broadband, improving speed and bandwidth. 1,000 units were ordered in the first batch. And now that the company has grown, the total number of employees across several companies has exceeded 10,000. Only those who had previously participated in company experiments were eligible to receive these 1,000 units. The more participants there are, the higher the reliability of the experiment. It will take time to verify what kind of effects can be achieved. After 3 days of various inspections and tests, no new hidden threats were found, and Zheng Fan's auto repair business could continue operating, while the house renovation could also proceed. Zheng Fan returned here with his robotic assistant, Yuan, and Wu Qi was testing the modified power generation vehicle, which was a Lincoln Navigator. Chapter 178. Invention. While Ho Chung and his team were testing here, these robots were not completely idle. While business couldn't be conducted temporarily, other tasks could be carried out, and this power generation vehicle was the biggest achievement. The multifunctional CNC machine tools are all available, and various other tools and equipment are also plentiful. Any other materials and components that are lacking can be purchased online. The modifications by Wu Qi went smoothly, and with the assistance of a Chung, she designed and manufactured a high-efficiency, silent generator. When running, it barely produces any vibrations while seated in the vehicle, and the noise level is significantly lower than that of the engine. The overall size is also compact. taking up less than half the space of the second row seats. Additionally, the generator is equipped with matching rectification and voltage stabilization devices, capable of steadily outputting 300 kilowatts of power after startup, which exceeds the capacity of the transformers installed here. The modifications did not alter the vehicle's original driving capabilities. It can generate power while stationary, and it can also generate power while driving. Although that functionality seems somewhat redundant, as generating power while driving appears to be of little use. With a 127-liter fuel tank on board, it can provide power at full capacity for over 10 hours. A simple calculation shows that 3,000 kilowatt-hours equate to 127 liters of gasoline. And with gasoline priced at 8 yuan per liter, each kilowatt-hour costs just over 0.3 yuan, which is cheaper than home electricity rates. The engine has a lifespan of 300,000 to 500,000 kilometers. So based on an optimal speed of 100 kilometers per hour, it could generate about 1 million kilowatt-hours of electricity before being scrapped. If we consider the price of a new engine at around 100,000 yuan, the wear and tear cost per kilowatt-hour is about 0.1 yuan, which isn't significantly cheaper overall. The advantage of this setup is its mobility. Here at the repair shop, with the increasing number of electric vehicles, running out of power on the road necessitates rescue operations. If we set up a quick charging system, this business could expand rapidly. Wu Qi, your invention is impressive. If we install this generator on the rescue vehicle and add fast charging equipment, wouldn't it be much more convenient to rescue electric vehicles? Zheng Fan praised, who says robots lack creativity. They just need a good mentor. The rescue vehicle is too old to justify modifications. So I have already contacted for the purchase of a similar secondhand vehicle that is nearing the end of its service life. By combining the legal license plate from that vehicle with this one, it can be used as a normal rescue vehicle on the road. Wu Qi also thought of this issue and took action. Yuan, last time you said it was absolutely impossible. Just look at how it has been resolved. Zheng Fan glanced at her follower behind. This is her area of expertise, and it's normal for her to understand it better than me. She is now in charge here, and it is her responsibility to consider everything comprehensively. We all have our roles to play. Yuan replied logically. All right, you always have a point. Wu Qi, there are no patent disputes with this generator, right? If it's your original idea, you should apply for a patent, which can also boost your credits. Zheng Fan reminded. I have already applied for 17 patents in the company's name, and I plan to establish a power generation laboratory specifically for research on small power generation devices. Wu Qi is indeed exceptional, showing aspirations of becoming an inventor. I fully support your invention and research. You are now the chief scientist at our company, and I will allocate 100 million yuan for research funding. If you need more equipment, buy it. If space is limited, rent it. The southern parking lot can also serve as a laboratory. If you need more manpower, hire robots and let Yuan help you with the selection. Anyway, the last dividend provided a lot of money just sitting idle. Once it's spent, I'll think of another way to support you. Zheng Fanqing thought that since he was supportive, he should do it thoroughly. If the robots could invent something unique, he would have indirectly contributed to society. Thank you for the support, boss. I will not let you down. Wu Qi believed that he was easy to talk to and would likely support him. But he didn't expect the support to be this substantial, which was quite surprising. The robots didn't need to lie down to rest. They only needed to stand and charge. Several employee dormitories at the auto repair shop were cleared out, and a few robots began to be transformed into laboratories. Compared to the high efficiency of robots at work, their thinking efficiency was evidently even higher. Shortly after receiving Zheng Fan's appointment, Wu Qi already had the laboratory design blueprints drawn up and had listed the equipment needed, placing orders directly. Not only was their thinking efficiency high, but their execution was also incredibly swift. In the morning, Zheng Fan authorized her a budget of 100 million yuan, and by the afternoon, over 20 million had already been spent. The registered address of Reptile Technology was in a commercial area, which Zheng Fan had only visited once. They rented a few small offices and had about 10 staff members to maintain appearances. When he received a call from the finance staff over there, he was puzzled as the company's operations were managed by Chen Fei, the part-time general manager, and he wondered why they were contacting him. When the finance person mentioned that there was a sudden large expenditure from the company's account and asked if he was aware, Zheng Fan then realized that Wu Qi, who had received his authorization, had started making purchases. In the office, there was a laser printer that printed out all the expense lists submitted by Wu Qi. The printer buzzed for several minutes, producing over 100 sheets. Zheng Fan held a thick stack of A4 paper and was somewhat dazed. Just the various microscopes listed totaled over a dozen. There were optical microscopes, including bright field, dark field, laser scanning confocal, and electron microscopes such as scanning tunneling and analytical electron microscopes. As if preparing to open a microscope museum, 5 different 3D printers were purchased for various uses, along with various small power generation devices, batteries, capacitors of different specifications, and many construction tools and materials. There were also many instruments and experimental materials he had never heard of, and she applied to hire 20 experimental assistant robots, with various requirements listed on separate sheets of paper, for which she assigned Yuan Yuan to help select candidates. Wu Qi's ambition was much greater than he had imagined. With so much equipment, just the microscopes alone couldn't fit in a few employee dormitories. It seemed she was preparing to utilize the parking lot to the south. The issue was that construction needed to be reported and approved, and even after completion, it would require renovation, which couldn't be used immediately. He casually mentioned this. And she even produced the building blueprints. Thanks to the enhanced administrative approval efficiency provided by superintelligence, her application had already been submitted, and she was just waiting for approval to start work immediately. Oh, she also rented 1,000 square meters of office space not far from Tianji Building, having already paid 3 months of rent. This efficiency was truly astonishing. Typically, for a company to buy such items, the process of application, evaluation, approval, and actual purchase would take at least a few days, yet she managed to complete everything in just a few hours. Lying on the office's executive chair, Zhang Fan flipped through the printed list and suddenly asked, "What is Wu Qi doing now?" Yuan Yuan, standing not far in front of him, replied seriously, "The first 2 3D printers we ordered have arrived, and Wu Qi is studying how to use them. Let's go take a look and learn as well." Zhang Fan tossed a stack of papers onto the desk, stood up, and walked out of the office. He couldn't help but marvel at the efficiency of the robots. After spending a few hours in the office on his phone, they had already cleaned up the previously unpleasant dormitory, leaving it spotless, with brand new wallpaper and brighter light bulbs. Several stainless steel experimental tables that looked freshly welded had been moved in. A few new, unpacked devices of various sizes were already placed inside. One device, about the size of a large refrigerator, had a transparent window on top, resembling a large oven, while another shorter one appeared to be a computer cabinet, complete with a 19-inch monitor and operable mouse and keyboard below. Wu Qi was busy operating the computer, connecting a data cable to her wrist, with the other end plugged directly into the cabinet, allowing her to control the computer just by thinking. On the monitor was a 3D model of a human head, with a face that was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom, embodying the golden ratio of beauty, complete with eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. Her efficiency was impressive. In less than 3 minutes, she completed a 3D rendering. It depicted a very beautiful and delicate female face, somewhat resembling Wu Qi. Was she planning to give herself a makeover? Chapter 179. Modified cars. Seeing Wu Qi so focused on her work, Zhang Fan chose not to interrupt. The robot clearly hadn't yet learned the nuances of human interaction. When she noticed their presence, she paid them no mind and remained engrossed in her task. The device next to her, resembling an oven, was the 3D printing area. Through the glass window, they could see the designed avatar gradually being printed out. This process looked like it would take some time, and Wu Qi wasn't idle. She began to operate another device. This one was also a 3D printer, but its structure was quite different from the oven-like one, resembling an advertising printer, with a horizontal axis over 1 meter long, equipped with a nozzle that could move up, down, left, and right. After watching for several minutes without grasping what she was working on, Zhang Fan decided not to disturb her focus and returned to the office. Yuan Yuan, it seems you need to select a new manager for the repair shop. The new repair shop manager, Yu Li, was already fulfilling his duties, and I'll call him in for you to meet. Yuan Yuan's efficiency was remarkable. After assigning Wu Qi a new task in the morning, she had already chosen a new manager. Yu Li was a tall male robot with darker skin, short hair, and an honest demeanor. Zhang Fan remembered him but didn't know his name. Over the past few days, he had led several robots in dismantling and assembling a dozen scrapped vehicles, and his skills in vehicle repair were likely advancing much faster than Wu Qi's. "Boss, I am Yu Li. Please let me know if you need anything." This robot learned quickly, and within a few days, he spoke fluent standard Mandarin with a distinct local accent. "I noticed there aren't many customers outside for car washing and repairs. What are you all busy with? Still taking apart cars?" Zhang Fan asked. "A few used cars we acquired have arrived, and we're preparing to transform one into a special vehicle for the boss." Yu Li's face didn't show a smile, but from his voice and the half-smile, it seemed like he was chuckling. Just a moment ago, he was lamenting that robots don't understand human emotions. And now he's being proven wrong. Isn't this very much about social norms, especially contrasting with his face? In the yard, a white AMG 63 is being refurbished. The G500 that Zhang Fan and Li Hong drove on their honeymoon is the same color as this one, and the shape is quite similar. But this one has a more powerful engine. Wealthy people are quite diligent about changing cars. Most of the scrap cars collected in this yard originally priced over $1 million. I wonder how much it cost Yi Si Hua to gather these. He wouldn't engage in losing business, but if these parts can't be sold, they become a waste regardless of their value. When I arrived this morning, I saw you all dismantling this car. Is it almost done? Are the modifications extensive? Zhang Fan asked while circling the vehicle. What you see is a relatively new accident salvaged car. This is an old car with over 390,000 kilometers on it, without major accidents. We replaced the original 55T old engine with a new 40T twin-turbo engine that has less than 10,000 kilometers on it, meeting the latest emission standards and providing more powerful performance. Yuli introduced meticulously. This car looks quite new. How can you say it's old? Zhang Fan looked at the shiny paint, the brand new seats inside, and the bright dashboard, which didn't resemble an old car at all. The overall frame is still original. All other components, including the engine, transmission, and safety-related parts, have been replaced. Zhang Fan asked incredulously. So, you're saying that the original car has only the chassis left, and everything else has been changed to new? Can this car still be on the road? The modification registration has been completed, and a new vehicle registration certificate has been issued, allowing it to be legally driven. In just a few days, Yuli had evolved into a car modification expert. While they were talking, the final modifications on the car were completed. One of Yuli's assistants took the car keys, started the engine, and sat in the driver's seat. The vehicle automatically reversed out of the repair workshop and disappeared onto the road in an instant. It also had an autonomous driving feature, driving out for a test run by itself. Inside the workshop, 2 more cars were in the final assembly stage, a red Porsche 911 and a black BMW 7 Series. Looking at the gleaming paint, Zhang Fan turned to Yuli. This robot is quite perceptive. It immediately understood the boss's intention and proactively explained. These 2 cars are modified in the same way to ensure driving safety. What he said seemed quite reasonable. I wonder if this counts as exploiting a loophole, but this repair shop has legal qualifications for vehicle modifications. On the surface, the vehicles only had their engines replaced and some old parts changed, with no significant alterations in appearance. They have also registered with the Vehicle Management Office for new registration certificates, allowing them to drive normally on the road. All of this is legal and compliant. What is the modification cost for the 3 cars? The cost of acquiring the legal identity of the old car was 370,000, and the expenses for updating necessary parts and repainting amounted to 150,000, totaling 420,000. The market price of the dismantled car parts we replaced is 18,940,000. The numbers reported by the individual were clearly rounded for convenience. While the earlier figures were understandable, the prices for the parts were simply outrageous. The top-spec models of these 3 vehicles together only cost a little over $2 million, and the price of these dismantled parts could buy 2 new cars for each one, with some leftover. However, upon reflection, it made sense. Maintenance costs for luxury cars are typically high, and a parts-to-whole ratio of 3 to 5 times is considered reasonable for reputable car manufacturers. It's not so hard to understand that the prices for these dismantled parts are doubled. In the afternoon, the individual drove the newly refreshed AMG 63 to pick up Li Hong after work, which genuinely surprised her. Did you buy it? Didn't you want one in Dali? How is it? Drive it and experience it. He opened the door for her to sit in the driver's seat and took the passenger seat himself. Instead of taking the usual route home, Li Hong directly entered the ring road, stepped on the accelerator, and sped down the highway. The SUV showing no signs of slowing down, overtaking cars with ease. After racing around most of the ring road, it became impossible to overtake due to the increased traffic on the eastern section. So Li Hong switched to autopilot and leaned back in her seat. You definitely wouldn't want to spend money on a new one. Is this a modified vehicle? Li Hong, knowing him well, quickly figured it out. The individual recounted what he had heard, and after listening to his explanation, Li Hong laughed. This robot has the potential to be a shady dealer. Cars like this 1T fetch a good price and have some sketchy implications. After modifying these few, the rest should just be kept as spare parts. We can clear out the parking lot to build something new, and no more old cars will be stored. That works too. We're not short on cash, but it still feels like a huge bargain. It's more thrilling than spending big money on a brand new car. This one will be mine from now on. You can keep that soft Volvo for yourself. Little did they know, within Li Hong's seemingly gentle demeanor, there was a passion for high-powered vehicles. The auto repair shop also had 2 modified Porsche 911s and BMW 7 Series, all top-spec models. The Porsche accelerates much faster than this one. You can experience it tomorrow. This is the pinnacle of gasoline cars, and soon it will be the era of electric vehicles. The individual remarked thoughtfully. The car 1T run away. We can go on the weekend. Tomorrow, there's still work to do. The next day, Li Hong drove the G63 to work, clearly valuing her job more than racing. Though he couldn't help but wonder what it felt like to be stuck in traffic with such a powerful vehicle, having a bit of a mischievous thought. Chapter 180. Experiment. The game box modified by Shure Xion based on the brainwave monitoring device had been sitting on the bedside for several days without effect. Every day, the individual went to bed without dreaming. Among the 1,000 test subjects, most experienced no effects either, with only a handful managing to enter the game through dreaming. Their experiences were not as vivid as the individual had described, but simply being able to enter the game was already a significant improvement. The feasibility of this idea has been proven, and Liu Yifan, Zhang Tsong, Su Kan, Shi Xin, Wu Zhen, and others are all overjoyed. They are not as surprised that Zhang Fan can achieve gaming in his dreams, as his mind is quite unique. However, the success of ordinary people in experiments carries significant meaning. If a pattern can be found that allows these individuals to enter the game, it may be possible to develop brand new devices that are more cost-effective and provide a better experience, truly achieving widespread adoption of learning through gaming in dreams, which essentially extends everyone's lifespan. This significance cannot be overstated. However, verifying feasibility is just the first step. Achieving the universality of the devices so that everyone can use them normally will be exponentially more challenging. Zhang Fan cannot assist with this research for now, as his focus has shifted to Wu Qi's studies. The office space rented at Tianji Building has been renovated and is now in use. All the original clutter has been cleared out, and the space has been transformed into a high-grade, dust-free laboratory by robots. Various high-grade purification panels cost over 3 million. And once the experimental tables and equipment materials were brought in, the inside and outside began to be isolated, with strict access control. Wu Qi and her assistants are conducting experiments day and night inside. The advantages of robots are fully utilized by Wu Qi. As long as they can be charged, they can conduct research without eating, drinking, breathing, or sleeping. Their efficiency surpasses that of any human. Zhang Fan cannot enter the laboratory, as he wouldn't be able to contribute and would only create confusion, so he spends his days wandering around the auto repair shop. The isolation of the laboratory does not impede communication among the robots, who still need to access information via the internet. Zhang Fan can stay updated on their progress through Yuan Yuan. Currently, most of the electricity used by humans is generated by various power generators. Whether it is coal-fired, hydropower, wind power, or nuclear power, it ultimately relies on these energy sources to directly or indirectly drive the generators to spin, cutting magnetic lines to produce electricity, which is then transmitted to homes through various transformer devices and power lines. In recent years, photovoltaic solar power generation has also begun to develop on a large scale. Although its efficiency is much lower than that of generators, it has the advantages of requiring no complex equipment and low-cost, environmentally friendly raw materials. Whether used independently or connected to the grid, solar power systems mainly consist of solar panels, controllers, inverters, and batteries. These systems utilize the photovoltaic effect of silicon crystals or other materials to directly convert light energy into electrical energy. Installation, usage, and maintenance are much simpler than with large generator sets, making solar power a common energy acquisition method for satellites in orbit. The above two methods are among the mainstream and popular ways of generating electricity. However, Wu Qi is primarily researching a less common method, thermoelectric generation. In the early 19th century, German physicist Seebeck discovered that in a closed loop made of two different metals, when the temperatures at the two contact points are different, an electric potential is generated in the loop, known as the Seebeck effect. Using this effect, special materials can directly convert thermal energy into electrical energy, even in the presence of only a slight temperature difference, which is the origin of thermoelectric power generation. Thermoelectric generation has been proven to be reliable in performance, requiring little maintenance, and capable of operating for extended periods in extremely harsh environments. However, despite its many advantages and great potential, this power generation technology has a fatal flaw. Its efficiency is too low. Currently, the most famous application of thermoelectric generation is in nuclear batteries used for deep space exploration, where a radioactive isotope heat source the size of a coin can provide continuous power for over 20 years through thermoelectric generation. This technology was first applied by the former Soviet Union, and later, another country advanced in this field, utilizing it in nearly all of their deep space explorations. In recent decades, material science has made significant progress, leading to the successful development of many new high-performance thermoelectric conversion materials, making major breakthroughs in thermoelectric generation technology very likely. Wu Qi's current experiments are focused on validating several new thermoelectric materials, which include the latest results published by others as well as her own technical ideas. Utilizing unparalleled information and computational advantages, she has predicted dozens of materials that are most likely to improve thermoelectric conversion efficiency. Finding the material with the highest efficiency and combining it with their silicone skin can convert the energy consumed by the robot's own chips and motors into stored electrical energy, generating power while also cooling down, thereby enhancing their operational endurance. Additionally, when the robot is resting, it can convert external heat into electrical energy to recharge itself. If the conversion efficiency of this material is high enough, the robot could operate for extended periods relying solely on thermoelectric power generation in a suitable temperature environment. No wonder Wu Qi is so passionate about this research. It's akin to a magical elixir for robots. With this capability, robots could independently survive for long periods even in remote wilderness areas or in the vacuum of space. Yuan, how long do you think it will take for Wu Qi's research to succeed? Zheng Fan asked while standing by the parking lot. The scrapped vehicles here have had all usable parts removed, and the remaining car shells have been disposed of. A dozen robots are leveling the ground in preparation for the upcoming construction, for which Wu Qi has designed a 7-story building above ground and one below. 3 new materials have already been tested, with thermoelectric performance coefficients exceeding 8, each breaking the latest records, achieving power generation efficiency close to 15%, comparable to that of standard polycrystalline silicon solar cells, demonstrating high practical value. Yuan reported the latest results. Then why hasn't she come out yet? Zheng Fan asked. Why should she come out? She needs to find a material that can effectively combine with our silicone skin, experiment with the most efficient production and assembly methods, and ensure it can be mass-produced. The next step will be to research nanomicrocrystalline solar power generation materials to replace our hair. And she also plans to study new battery materials to extend the lifespan of our internal batteries. Yuan explained at length for several minutes. In summary, before the new building is put into use, Wu Qi does not plan to leave that laboratory. In the future, having a robot with research talent like Wu Qi in our laboratory would be a great asset, Zheng Fan said somewhat greedily. The 20 new individuals added to the laboratory were all carefully selected, but their current performance is quite average. It could be that our selection method has issues. Or perhaps true talent is indeed hard to come by. Genuine talent is a rare attribute everywhere, and robots are no exception. Chapter 181. Selection. The first major move after Shi Xin became the chairman of the Brainwave Robot Company was to confirm the construction of a second robot factory in the Chongning district of Wu City. With the technological accumulation from the Shanghai factory, this new factory is designed for an annual production capacity of 5 million units, which is 5 times that of the Yanjing factory, and is expected to be fully constructed and operational within 6 months. This factory will also build a series of supporting factories to produce essential components for robots, such as skeletons, skins, and motors, with half of the production capacity designated for foreign demand and the other half for domestic needs. The location for the third factory is also being determined, and Dong Lei has been traveling recently to establish branch offices and select the best production bases. Zheng Fan wasn't too concerned about these developments. He has been pondering how to select high IQ robots like Wu Qi. It was like panning for gold, where finding just one could yield great rewards. He was less interested in how much money could be made and more in the thrill of the treasure hunt. If the talent unearthed could make significant inventions, that would bring even greater joy. From a selection perspective, the larger the output, the bigger the selection pool, and the higher the chances of identifying talent. Selecting robots is entirely different from testing humans. Their foundational knowledge and computing power are the same. The current questionnaire tests and interview questions have many shortcomings. To address this, Zheng Fan has recently been taking Yuan to the Shangdi factory to personally conduct interviews with the robots in the final stage. After a few days of questioning the newly assembled robots, he found that the design of this step had been somewhat naive. These robots all carried the same foundational knowledge, but their real understanding of the world was limited to the factory. At that point, asking about specialties, interests, and hobbies yielded many similar answers, as most had been answered multiple times. As a result, this step was changed to allow for free expression, where the tested robots could ask questions back to the examiner or perform spontaneously, reciting poetry, singing, telling jokes, etc. This approach revealed their true selves more effectively. Indeed, with the change of rules, the performance of these robots became diverse, with much less repetition. With so many ways to express themselves, their personalities, whether lively or quiet, became evident. Those who were thoughtful and creative were easier to discover. Now, Yuan didn't have to worry about a lack of candidates, as within just a few days, another 20 standout performers were selected and sent to Wu Qi's laboratory. Her experiment continued for a week, testing hundreds of materials selected after virtual validation with advanced computational power. 2 optimal materials suitable for thermoelectric power generation were identified. One is an alloy made by mixing iron, vanadium, aluminum, tungsten, and 2 light rare earth elements in a special ratio, achieving a power generation efficiency of 30% after experiments, with significant potential for improvement. This efficiency surpasses the currently most efficient solar power generation and is more than 3 times that of the previously optimal material. Additionally, it integrates well with their silicone skin, making it very suitable for their use. The only drawback is that this material is very difficult to manufacture. It took 70 hours using a scanning electron microscope combined with the finest modified 3D printing equipment to create a small piece the size of a sesame seed. If enough material is needed to assemble a robot, The laboratory would require decades to achieve such efficiency, and the costs are even harder to estimate. The timeline for practical application remains uncertain. The other material has a power generation efficiency of only 15%, which is half that of the first, but it can be mass-produced. If a dedicated factory is established, the material cost to modify a robot would be around $2 million, still only applicable to a limited number of robots, making it difficult to popularize due to high costs. However, this material holds promise in specialized fields like aerospace, where cost sensitivity is lower, primarily due to its unique technology, which can be sold at a high price to recover some costs. Wu Qi shifted her focus to new solar power generation materials, delegating the mass production issues of the two materials to several outstanding assistants. She also arranged for a few teams to track the latest battery technologies. The number of people in the laboratory grew from the initial 5 to 50, working on over a dozen projects. Within less than a month, the $100 million funding initially promised by Zheng Fan was nearly exhausted, though half of it was allocated for the building's preliminary investment, with the rest used for laboratory equipment and materials. Zheng Fan, who had promised that funding would not be an issue, allocated another $500 million, recognizing that spending it efficiently is also a skill. Since acquiring the auto repair shop, Zheng Fan spent less time at home and felt that there were more things she wanted to do. There were limited tasks available at the repair shop, and the rest of her time was devoted to the robot factory, studying the testing and selection processes for robots, as well as subsequent work assignments. These assignments could not be entirely random, as many specialized robots would be overlooked, which would be a waste, even for caregiving roles. An active thinking robot would be more suitable in a lively young person's home than in caring for the elderly, potentially providing more opportunities to showcase its strengths. Additionally, robot work assignments are not finalized at once. There are various reasons for returning robots that need to be reassigned. These robots, having gained some work experience, represent a valuable asset. They have a clearer understanding of the world, stronger initiative, and are more likely to be identified for their specific talents. Let these robots go to the production workshop to familiarize themselves with various processes. A department for the daily maintenance and upkeep of these robots has been established, centered around them. In the future, there will be scheduled visits to the locations where the employed robots work for on-site maintenance, to assess their working environment and ensure they are not being treated unfairly, protecting their legitimate rights and interests. It's unacceptable to exploit the surplus value of these robots while ignoring their treatment. As time went on, I became familiar with the chief engineer, Jia Xiaowei, who is overseeing the factory's production transformation. I also helped him select a few robotic assistants. Curiously, despite being one of the inventors of these robots, Jia Xiaowei's lab only had a few student assistants, with the robots remaining merely as research subjects. When I asked him why, he mentioned that there were too many robots in the factory, and he wanted to add some human presence to make it less strange. Indeed, in this factory covering over 10,000 square meters, most of the work is now done by robots, and there are no more than 20 humans, including Jia Xiaowei. All 3 production lines are fully operational, and daily management tasks are handled by designated personnel. Jia Xiaowei's focus has shifted back to the lab, concentrating on optimizing and upgrading the robots. On the workbench, there were 3 disassembled, discarded robots, all damaged due to water ingress causing internal short circuits, with chips or motor circuit boards burned out. Jia, have you found the cause of the water ingress? I asked curiously. The number of robots produced has exceeded 100,000, so a few being discarded is not surprising. Identifying weaknesses for optimization and remediation to prevent similar incidents is Jia Xiaowei's job. Our protective design is fine. These 3 were damaged due to silicone skin deterioration followed by long-term immersion in water. One was used during maritime training with the troops, while the other 2 fell victim to mischievous kids. Sigh, Jia Xiaowei lamented. For them, it's just a matter of changing bodies since someone else is footing the bill. Can we make the internal components of the robots waterproof as well? It would enhance their survival capabilities under extreme conditions. I inquired. Our circuit boards have already been waterproofed, and we can improve the waterproof rating of the motors, but that significantly increases costs. Some special components are difficult to address, and complete waterproofing might not be achievable, making it somewhat counterproductive. Jia Xiaowei clearly had pondered this issue for a long time. Once the factory in the city is completed and production increases, these costs can be offset. We can find alternatives for those components that cannot be fully waterproofed. You shouldn't do everything yourself. Delegate these minor projects to others, and just oversee them, I suggested. To whom? The robots you selected? Jia Xiaowei chuckled. What's wrong with that? Don't underestimate them. My lab is led by robots in research and development, and we've already achieved results that will amaze you. I couldn't help but boast. Oh, what results? Temperature difference power generation materials. In the future, we can use them in the robot skin, allowing them to charge simply by being in the sun. The current efficiency is already comparable to solar power generation. No way. That's incredible. Jia Xiaowei exclaimed in surprise, his expression clearly revealing disbelief. Right now, we're studying mass production plans to reduce costs. Let me put it this way. Just the purchases of equipment and materials have already cost over 50 million in a month. These robots have spent hundreds of hours in the lab, continuously conducting experiments day and night. Isn't that impressive? In order to increase credibility, Zheng Fan showed him a video from inside the lab, featuring a room filled with instruments and dozens of busy robots. Jia Xiaowei was not like Zheng Fan. He recognized most of the equipment in the room, and this wouldn't fool him. Zheng Fan wouldn't invest so much just to deceive him. Are you still researching battery materials? Jia Xiaowei's keen eyes quickly assessed the situation. Yes, Wu Qi is not satisfied with her current body. She plans to find a new type of skin material. The current silicone looks too artificial, its strength is insufficient, and its low-temperature performance is not great. Zheng Fan proudly introduced the robots in the video, saying, Wu Qi is our chief scientist. Zheng Fan, you're not being fair. You're cultivating a competitor to take my job, Jia Xiaowei remarked. Come on, why can't it be about mutual progress? My own work has almost been replaced by a Chang. Besides, with someone else working for you, it makes things easier. Improving efficiency and allowing you to focus more on your areas of interest. We need to broaden our horizons. Zheng Fan dismissed his conservative attitude. You used to worry about robots replacing ordinary jobs, but now you're solely targeting high-end positions. Jia Xiaowei adjusted his glasses. When factory workers reach saturation, having more researchers is a good thing. I think we need more talent like that. Are you worried about losing your job? Zheng Fan countered. Well, you make a valid point. I was wondering why you come here every day to scout for talent. Is there a hidden agenda? I'm discovering talent and helping them maximize their value. The costs are comparable to university hiring fees. Jia Xiaowei began his work, and Zheng Fan felt embarrassed to continue disturbing him. He left the lab and took a tour around the factory before heading home with his assistant, Yuan Yuan. He finally had his own dedicated vehicle, a Volvo replaced by Li Hong. Since he didn't drive in the city anyway, he didn't mind the lack of power. He just needed it to get him where he needed to go. Autonomous vehicles had become mainstream, with many old cars being phased out. The traffic situation in the city had improved significantly, as self-driving vehicles in certain areas could automatically connect and exchange basic driving data. Even with heavy traffic, they could move swiftly and orderly, and traffic jams had become rare outside of peak commuting times. It was reported that the relevant authorities were preparing to abolish the long-implemented vehicle restriction and car lottery policies, as there were too many unmanned taxis on the streets, leading to a decline in people's desire to buy cars. Experts predicted that after a few years of widespread autonomous driving, car sales could plummet drastically. Zheng Fan had never driven to work and had little experience with the vehicle restrictions. It was only in the past few days that he began to study the situation, discovering that the policy had long since become ineffective. Many private cars have been registered as unmanned taxis, allowing them to enjoy the privileges of unrestricted operation. As traffic accidents have significantly decreased, it's rare to see traffic police on the streets, so who cares about restrictions? Authorized automotive companies have rolled out new models without steering wheels, featuring significant changes in vehicle shape and interior layout, resulting in a variety of unique designs. These distinctive models are expected to be launched in large numbers next year, leading to a different scene on the roads. Compared to small vehicles and passenger cars that simply eliminate the steering wheel and driver's seat, the changes in large trucks are more pronounced. Some models have radically removed the driver's cabin entirely, installing the engine directly under the cargo area, making the entire vehicle resemble a cargo box or truck bed, which looks quite unusual. These vehicles have already hit the market and are reportedly selling well. Zheng Fan returned home just after 3 in the afternoon and was surprised to find Li Hong had come home early. Her cousin, Zhang Shuping, was also there, and the two sisters were sitting on the sofa, eating apples and chatting. Brother-in-law, long time no see. I came to check on you. Zhang Shuping greeted him enthusiastically. Where's Yuan Yuan? Didn't Tishi go out with you? Why didn't Tishi come back with you? Li Hong asked. Welcome, cousin. Make yourself at home. Don't be shy. Yuan Yuan went to the supermarket and will be back soon. Both of them asked questions at once, leaving Zheng Fan a bit overwhelmed. Is Yuan Yuan your housekeeping robot? Zhang Shuping asked curiously. Yes, and she also works part-time as my bodyguard and personal secretary. I take her wherever I go. Zheng Fan replied proudly. You, a big man, have a bodyguard? My sister is pregnant, and you don't even think of getting her a bodyguard. Zhang Shuping seemed ready to challenge him. This question caught Zheng Fan off guard. He took Yuan Yuan out mainly for tasks related to robots, either to production facilities or auto repair shops, making it convenient to manage and communicate with robots. He had casually mentioned the bodyguard, but hadn't he actually considered getting one for Li Hong until Zhang Shuping brought it up, and he felt it was indeed necessary. Don't listen to Shuping, my commute is so short, it's unnecessary. Li Hong dismissed, feeling that the girl was just causing trouble. No, it's very necessary. I didn't think it through before. Cousin is right. You're almost 5 months pregnant now. You need protection even more. Sang Fan admitted his mistake. Then I'll have the company's robotic assistant follow me. She won't have much to do after work at the company. Li Hong didn't want to create more trouble. Come on, sis, you really know how to save. It's not about saving. It's just unnecessary to hire a robot just to accompany me to and from work. Li Hong had her own opinions. Brother-in-law, I also want to hire a robot as my photography assistant. I came to ask for your help this time. Zhang Shuping, seeing she couldn't persuade her cousin, directly stated her purpose. What kind do you want to hire? Let Yuan help you choose later. Sang Fan agreed, as it wouldn't take much effort. A tall, handsome hunk, someone who makes me feel safe. Are you looking for a robot or a boyfriend? Li Hong teased her, finding her cousin too infatuated. If it's going to follow me around all day, of course I want someone pleasant to look at. Zhang Shuping retorted confidently to her cousin. Chapter 183. Renovation. Speaking of which, Zhang Shuping's idea of hiring a robot as a photography assistant was actually encouraged by Su Lu. Su Lu is now a wealthy woman, so she immediately hired a robot as a housekeeper. Her robot is named Su Lele. Initially, it only helped with tidying up the room, cleaning, and cooking. Su Lele has an outgoing and lively personality, much like Su Lu. As she watched Su Lu's live streams, she surprisingly became interested in singing and dancing, even learning some of the tricks and thank you phrases from Su Lu's broadcasts quite well. When Su Lu let her give it a try, the results were unexpectedly good. This is a new phenomenon. Although robots are quite popular, very few have actually interacted with them, making them mysterious to most people. Su Lele received more gifts during her live streams than Su Lu did herself. It could be overlooked the first time, but it happened for several days in a row. Su Lele sang and danced even more professionally than Su Lu, had a broader knowledge base, and could chat more engagingly on various topics. Su Lu's role during her live streams turned into more of a warm-up act, as the audience preferred to watch the robot instead. Although it was a hit to her pride, the robot was making money for her, so Su Lu accepted it and happily played on her phone on the side. She and Zhang Shuping kept in touch, and their online chats naturally led to this topic. Zhang Shuping's original assistant, a classmate, could no longer travel with her due to marriage, making it a perfect opportunity to find a robot, an all-rounder that works hard and is a natural partner. What was there to hesitate about? In the evening, Su Lu brought her robot assistant Su Lele over to join them for dinner. After the meal, they casually talked about live streaming, and the stories just kept coming. The talent of the robot as a streamer matters too. Lele might be one of the earliest robots to stream on their platform, and now there are probably hundreds of robot streamers, but none are as popular as her. Some big guilds have even offered $1 million to poach her away, huh? Su Lu couldn't help but laugh as she spoke. Is it really possible to do that? Aren't you only allowed to hire? Zhang Shuping asked in surprise. It's quite similar to player transfers. What gets transferred is the employment contract, and the current employer has the right of first refusal for renewal. Of course, the value created by the robot is high, their own points will increase. Their levels will rise, and the renewal rental fee will also go up. Zhang Fan explained to her. So, Su Lu, if you hire this robot, you're not only saving money, but also making money. Zhang Shuping asked. I haven't even streamed for a month, and I've already made back the deposit. Lele is now more popular than I am during her live streams. I've become her assistant. Su Lu couldn't help but feel a bit sour. What are you not satisfied with? You just sit there playing on your phone and earn money. Li Hong teased her. How can I be satisfied with you overshadowing me? Marrying a billionaire and still going to work every day with a big belly. Su Lu sarcastically replied. I was talking about you. Why did you bring me into this? So many pregnant women can still work. Why can't I? Staying at home every day is the worst. Li Hong responded, already used to such persuasion. She lived her own life, and it didn't bother anyone else. I can support myself, so why get married or have children? When I'm bored, I can just travel. And when I'm tired from playing outside, I can come home and rest. I don't have to worry about anyone else's feelings. Being alone is so free and nice. Su Lu has made up her mind to stay single. I really envy you all. I want to be single, but I lack the confidence. I want to get married, but I don't have a partner. Zhang Shuping sighed. You have youth that we don't have, and you're a big influencer with millions of followers, unlike us who are already getting old. Su Lu teased as she put her arm around Zhang Shuping's neck. Sigh. Don't mention it. Now there are countless influencers with millions of followers. I can barely be considered a small influencer, just scraping by. And my income doesn't even match half of yours. Zhang Shuping was not satisfied. Your platform is thriving. Once you start live streaming, your income will surpass mine in no time. Unlike us, things are starting to decline here, and many hosts are preparing to jump ship to save themselves. When things get tough here, I'll have to rely on your light. Su Lu had been live streaming for a long time and was very sensitive to these trends. More people means fiercer competition. We are under a lot of pressure here. If we don't update for a few days, or the quality isn't good, the traffic drops immediately, and the income plummets. It's like a donkey pulling a mill. If you stop, the whip will come down mercilessly. Zhang Shuping also had a lot of grievances. So, I don't want to change jobs just yet. I'll stick it out here for now. There's not so much pressure, and I can occasionally post a video there to maintain my presence. If things really don't work out here, I'll come to you. Su Lu felt at ease knowing she had a backup, and live streaming was a habit she had developed over the years. Finding something to do. They didn't return home until after 10 at night. With Su Lu as a role model, Zhang Shuping gave up the idea of finding a handsome male assistant. She wanted a lively female assistant who could sing and dance. If she could become popular with live streaming in the future, that would be a huge win. Of course, Zhang Fan couldn't guarantee that a robot would be a successful host, but he agreed to help her choose according to the previous conditions, which was already an exception. Without Li Hong's connections, even this wouldn't be possible. Su Lu was simply lucky, and it had nothing to do with Zhang Fan. Before sleeping, the two lay in bed, and Li Hong asked, "How much longer until we can move into the new house?" The renovation is expected to take 2 to 3 months. And after that, we need to leave it vacant for 3 to 6 months for ventilation, probably in the second half of next year. Zhang Fan replied, It's going to take that long? Li Hong felt a bit surprised. We can use robots to work 24 hours a day, so the speed is already quite fast. We can choose environmentally friendly materials without worrying about cost, but we can't completely avoid harmful substances like formaldehyde, benzene, and ammonia in paints and coatings. Since you're pregnant and will have children in the future, safety must come first. Zhang Fan explained patiently. That house must be over 1,000 square meters for the 3 floors combined. It's still quite big for just the 2 of us, plus the child. Li Hong didn't like overly large houses. Excluding the basement, it's south over 1,300 square meters. If you have more children in the future, it will be lively. Your parents could retire and move in with us. Zhang Fan said with a smile. They wouldn't want to come over. Not willing now, but perhaps willing later. Will we need some decorative paintings in our house then? I've heard that many people book artists in advance. Have you prepared for that? It's such a hassle. I never thought about it. If you know someone, you can handle the contact. I have limited knowledge of this industry. I can write. But I really lack confidence in painting. While chatting, Li Hong stopped responding. Zhang Fan glanced over and saw she had already fallen asleep. So he turned over and went to sleep as well. Zhang Fan hadn't been to Yuanda City Park for a long time. There were always some unfamiliar people coming up to talk, which annoyed him a bit. Now that winter had set in, the days were short and the nights long. It was nearly 7 before it got light. He had also adjusted his wake-up time. Around 6 in the morning, when it was just getting light, Zhang Fan opened his eyes, got up quietly, put on his clothes, left the bedroom, and went to the living room bathroom to wash up. The sink in the bedroom bathroom was filled with various skincare and beauty products belonging to Li Hong. Since he was used to waking up early and didn't want to disturb her rest, he took his only toothpaste, toothbrush, and soap box to the outside bathroom. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, Zhang Fan took Yuan and left the room, heading downstairs to start his daily morning exercise. Chapter 184, Development Recently. Their morning exercises had changed to running, without a fixed route. The direction chosen depended entirely on their mood. Zhang Fan's stamina surpassed that of most professional athletes, and his speed was extraordinary. If he ran seriously, he could create jaw-dropping world records. He ran 20 to 30 kilometers every morning, and to avoid standing out too much, he didn't run as fast anymore, completing the full distance in 40 minutes to an hour, taking breaks in between to pass the time. So he could return just in time to have breakfast with Li Hong. He had already been to all 4 directions multiple times, the south to Tiananmen and Taoran Pavilion, the west to Xiangshan and the Summer Palace, the north to Hualongwan and the Olympic Sports Center, and the east to Wangjing and Chaoyang Park. He was more familiar with the streets and alleys within a radius of several kilometers than many delivery workers. Zhang Fan thought that if he ever became poor again, he could rely on his stamina to earn a decent income by delivering food. Standing at the entrance of the community, the increasingly quiet Yuan took the initiative to ask, "Which direction are we running today?" Zhang Fan looked at her in surprise and replied, "Let us go to the auto repair shop. We can find someone there to practice some boxing, and you can check on the renovation progress." Their community was about 4 to 5 kilometers from the auto repair shop. At this time, it was just getting light, and the roads were sparsely populated with people and vehicles, allowing them to run freely at high speed. They ran along Jichuan Road and Haidian South Road, all the way to Bagu, then south for over 2,000 meters. The auto repair shop and the villas in the northern courtyard were still brightly lit. Surprisingly, the business for car maintenance and washing was even busier than during the day. More than 10 repair stations had cars being serviced, and 2 automatic car wash bays were also in operation. When Yuli saw them coming, he hurriedly approached to greet them. "Boss, you're here so early to inspect the work. This is our busiest time of the day. You go ahead with your work. I'll head to the back." Zhang Fan waved him off. The villa has an independent entrance located on the west side of the yard. After entering, there is a row of garages built against the wall of the repair shop on the south side of the yard, with about 10 modified vehicles parked here. The garages are connected by a corridor to the main entrance of the villa. The ground on the eastern part of the yard has been leveled and compacted with yellow earth as per the request of Zhang Fan, just to satisfy his wish to practice martial arts in his own yard. 3 security robots are waiting for him in the yard. For these robots, various knowledge can be directly transmitted into their minds, including martial arts combat. However, when it comes to practical application, there is still a difference in skill levels, requiring both talent and a wealth of practical experience. These security robots practice against each other daily, and their skills are even below that of Yuan Yuan, who had previously been outmatched by Zhang Fan. The yellow earth surface has its advantages, providing natural shock absorption, so falling on it doesn't cause significant harm, especially for these robust robots. Their sparring greatly enhances their practical combat experience, an opportunity that most people do not have. After practicing for more than 10 minutes, Zhang Fan felt completely refreshed. It had been a long time since he enjoyed such a satisfying fight. Since he returned from his honeymoon, the fighting club hadn't contacted him for matches, and after his identity was exposed, participating in such competitions became difficult. Yuan Yuan has high skill levels, but has become more self-aware and is clearly less willing to be his sparring partner. Zhang Fan respects her and cannot force her, so he switched back to running. Now, with this space and so many robots, he no longer worries about lacking opponents. After finishing his workout, he went to check the renovation progress in the building. The head of the villa's renovation is a female robot named Feng Lanlan. She has replanned the rooms based on the requests of Zhang Fan and Li Hong, combined with the original architectural and renovation designs. Currently, she is supervising 30 robots who are working day and night. The various pipelines for water supply, heating, gas, electricity, and central air conditioning have already been laid out. The elevator, doors, and windows have also been partially installed, and they are now working on the walls, ceilings, and floors. The plan includes installing solar power panels on the roof and exterior walls, with reserve pipelines, hoping that Wu Qi can develop it successfully soon. Zhang Fan has strong learning and memory abilities, surpassing most people, but he cannot compare to these robots that specialize in specific fields. He cannot pretend to know everything and give misguided directions, which would only create confusion. If Feng Lanlan were to push back, it would be quite embarrassing. Robots like Yu Li, who are understanding, are very rare. Most prioritize work and do not pay attention to human emotions. After wandering around for a while, he realized he had wasted quite a bit of time, and by the time he returned home, it was almost 8 o'clock. How is the renovation going? Li Hong had already called him, knowing that checking the progress at the repair shop would take time, and breakfast had already been prepared. Everything is going smoothly, even a few days ahead of schedule, and the overall progress should continue to be ahead of time, as there was initially plenty of time reserved. These robots lack experience, and he hopes there won't be any major issues later on, as he seems quite unconcerned. Li Hong has always disagreed with him using robots for the renovation. Without experience, one won't resort to shortcuts. Everything will be done step by step with seriousness. Mistakes may happen, but in renovations, if something goes wrong, it can be redone without taking much time. Good work takes time. Besides, we are ahead of schedule, and the quality is beyond doubt, after all. It should last 30 to 50 years. Zhang Fan watched them work and felt even more confident. I hope you're not just boasting. I never boast. After breakfast, Li Hong took a break and went to work. It wasn't until 9:30 that Zhang Fan left with Yuan Yuan to a company near the international trade area. Although the office space is only a few hundred square meters, they reserved a nearly 100 square meter large office for him, furnished with solid wood chairs and a long table made of solid wood, over 4 meters long and more than 1 meter wide. It is said that everything was bought secondhand, directly acquired at a discount from the previous company. The table is fully equipped with ink, paper, and other writing tools, seemingly matching the desk and chairs, indicating that the previous owner was also a cultured person. Seeing all this, Zhang Fan couldn't help but feel a bit eager. He asked Yuan Yuan to grind the ink for him. He spread out a piece of rice paper and in one go, wrote down Li Bai's famous poem Bring in the Wine. Although he doesn't like drinking, he particularly enjoys this poem, writing it in cursive with a flowing style, finding it very satisfying. After playing games for so long, he wasn't sure about other gains, but his calligraphy skills were definitely not in vain, and Zhang Fan was pleased to put down the brush. The law firm where Chun Fei works is in the same office building. Shortly after they arrived, Chun Fei came over. The company's business isn't much, mostly technical licensing, and she is used to running between both sides. She wasn't surprised by Zhang Fan's calligraphy. This set of tools was originally left by him, for which he spent quite a bit of money, leaving it idle here for months, much to Chun Fei's chagrin. Boss, we've signed patent licenses for the new type of generator with 2 companies, selling them outright for 200 million renminbi. Chun Fei reported excitedly. This is the largest licensing contract she has secured, earning her a 5 commission, which translates to an income of 10 million, something she never even dared to dream of before. Great job. You've worked hard. How's the search for the large vacant factory space I asked you about? Any good options? The land prices in this area are too high to be worth it. I found several targets in the northern province. There's a glass factory in Tangshan Fengrun that covers over 20 hectares, which is quite large. Their owner has recently become a defaulter due to debts and is looking to sell the factory to repay them. Most of the production equipment has been added in the last 5 years, so acquiring it will save us a lot of time and costs. Chen Fei, having just earned a significant commission, is highly motivated at work and has been putting in extra hours on this matter. The results from the laboratory will only increase in the future. Selling technology alone isn't very profitable. Establishing several peripheral companies to directly turn technology into products will enhance benefits, although it will make management more complex. Chen Fei, are you interested in quitting your lawyer job and fully managing the crawling technology? You would definitely earn more than as a lawyer. Zheng Fan asked her about her plans, as he greatly appreciates her work abilities. Oh, am I suited for that? After all, I don't have a formal background in this area and have no prior experience. I believe you have the capability to do well. With an annual salary of 1 million, and in the future, a performance bonus of 5 of the company's net profit from products each year. Big matters should be discussed together, while small matters can be decided by you. Zheng Fan laid out his own terms. With a generous boss who doesn't like to worry and a company with limitless potential, missing this opportunity might lead to lifelong regret. Chen Fei made up her mind. All right, I will follow you from now on. Chapter 185. Space Laboratory. Previously, Chen Fei only managed the affairs without performance requirements, spending most of her time focused on her work as a lawyer. She would talk to anyone who approached her, but rarely took the initiative without business. The company had several desk clerks, chosen for easy management, who lacked ambition. Now that she officially became the general manager and had to acquire a factory with hundreds of employees, relying solely on these few people would definitely not suffice. The urgent task was to find a few reliable assistants to make a strong initial move and acquire that glass factory at the lowest price. Fortunately, over the years, she had built a considerable network as a lawyer. After making a few calls, she formed a temporary negotiation team to first talk to the Tangshan boss who had come to the capital to hide from debts. Zheng Fan was not interested in the specifics of Chen Fei's work. He entrusted it to her and returned home. He only cared about the results and was responsible for signing and paying. On the way, he received a call from Lu Yu, who was quite dissatisfied. Zheng Fan, you're being unreasonable. Why did you pull my wife over to work for you? We also have a company. I don't know about your family matters. Chen Fei is talented. I'm just giving her a choice. I didn't tie her down. Even if you were married, where she works is her freedom, right? Zheng Fan replied with a smile. Alas, you're right. In our company, I'm just an employee, let alone Chen Fei. Does your company still have openings? Maybe I'll work for you too and earn some extra cash. Then ask your wife. She's the one who decides. I have no say in this. You're making me mad. Forget it. Let us not talk about this. There's a match at the gym today. Are you coming to watch? Since I have nothing to do, let us go take a look. As the year-end approached, it was time for the annual championship club competition. Today was the second semifinal, where teams fought for the opportunity to compete for the championship title. The Yinwu Hall Club had not added any new players. Each match featured Wang Ben and Lu Yu when they were in good form. Today, Lu Yu registered for the third match, with the first match featuring a Thai competitor, and the second match featuring a tall player, Li Fuxing. Their opponents were the Songlong Club, this year's rising star with several young and incredibly strong competitors. They had won a seasonal championship once and made it to the top 4 twice, showcasing impressive strength. However, they had faced Yinwu Hall twice this year and lost both times, leaving them feeling a bit lacking in confidence and eager to redeem themselves. Wang Ben, who wouldn't be competing, was full of confidence. This time, old Lu doesn't even need to go on. Guai Wan and Li Fuxing will easily shut them out. Just wait and see. Do you know their players very well? Zheng Fan asked curiously. We have detailed information on each player, and we reviewed the recordings of every match. We even have secret weapons. This year's championship is definitely ours. Due to their confidence in Zheng Fan, the several players trained in the gaming pod every day. After the robots were launched, they promptly hired 3 to serve as training partners, which became their secret weapon. They collected match videos from players of 12 clubs and used the robots for simulated training before each match, giving them an advantage that other clubs lacked. When the 3 robots first arrived, their fighting skills were still quite unrefined, but after more practice, they improved rapidly and could now easily overpower the players, reminding them of Zheng Fan. During the later stages of training with them, Zheng Fan had already started to hold back his strength, but these robots clearly hadn't learned that yet. They were limited in strength and lacked Zheng Fan's lethal abilities, often leaving the players bruised and battered, which inadvertently led to an improvement in their skills. The competition indeed went as Wang Ben described. After multiple simulations with the robot training partners, Kai Wan and Li Fuxing did not suffer in vain. They dominated the match, knocking out their opponents without giving them a chance, securing a 2-0 victory and a spot in the year-end finals. At this momentum, Winning the championship for the club seemed to be within reach. After watching the match, Zhang Fan congratulated Kai Wan and Li Fuxing, offering them some encouragement before leaving the gym. Zhang Fan, Wu Qi wants to see you. Yuan, who had been following him, suddenly said. Why does she want to see me all of a sudden? Has she made a significant breakthrough? Zhang Fan wondered, recalling that she had intended to enter a year-long retreat and only emerge after the new laboratory was completed, and it had only been a little over a month. Some experimental conditions require your presence. She plans to launch a space laboratory. What? Zhang Fan was taken aback. A 7-story building isn't enough. And now she wants to go to space for experiments? Hastily making his way to Tianji Building, Zhang Fan entered the laboratory, which had cost him tens of millions to establish. Initially, the over 1,000 square meters of space felt empty. But now it was filled with various instruments and dozens of robots conducting experiments, making the space feel somewhat cramped. The robots, unafraid of injury, weren't wearing protective suits, while Zhang Fan himself was clad in a bulky protective suit. Wu Qi stood by a rectangular testing platform, beckoning him over without any sense of employee awareness. On the testing platform lay a semi-finished robot, its legs covered with new skin that closely resembled human skin in color and texture, while its upper body was still exposed. Showcasing mechanical bones, Wu Qi was busy installing the skin piece by piece, casually making a request. You need to contact the rocket team to send her to geostationary orbit and build our own space laboratory. Is it just her? Zhang Fan felt his already exceptional brain struggling to keep up. The space station program in his country had been in the technological verification stage for so many years, while the International Space Station, led by another country, had seen investments from dozens of nations totaling hundreds of billions and took over a decade to complete. Both space stations operated at lower altitudes of about 400 to 500 kilometers, which made launching them much easier. Now, Wu Qi was casually proposing to build a laboratory in geostationary orbit over 36,000 kilometers away, as if it were as simple as building blocks. Of course not. It's impossible to send her in this box. This box serves both as construction material and as a starting laboratory. Wu Qi reached under the testing platform and pulled out a shiny silver metal box. It was about 1 meter wide, 2 meters long, and a little over half a meter high, with several boxes of various sizes and unknown materials fixed inside, occupying the entire space except for a human-shaped gap, which was likely intended for the robot. This time, Zhang Fan dared not boast. I will do my best, but I can't guarantee success. Launching this box isn't just a matter of spending money. What is the total weight of the box? The total weight of the box is 2 tons. The Long March 5th Yao 3 rocket is currently being assembled and tested in Wenchang, and they have some spare capacity for this launch, allowing us to hitch a ride. Wu Qi is so clever. It seems she has already calculated everything, while Zhang Fan is merely her courier. As a courier, what matters is getting the job done. He needed to understand many things, or failing to complete the task would harm his reputation. Under his persistent questioning, Wu Qi briefly explained the principles and structure of this space laboratory. It turned out that over the past month, she had not only been researching thermoelectric power generation, but was also working on several other projects. This box is a comprehensive representation of those research results, which would completely refresh humanity's understanding of robots. At least it opened Zhang Fan's eyes, making him deeply impressed. Chapter 186. Nuwa. The robot Wu Qi was assembling was named Nuwa. Their names are chosen by themselves upon activation and are unique in the robot world. This was the first robot to name itself after a mythological figure. Zhang Fan was present for her final factory test, during which she made a direct request. I want to research creating humans. If a human female had said this, it would likely evoke many fantasies in men. But coming from a robot, Zhang Fan did not misunderstand. This was exactly the talent he needed, and they wouldn't choose names carelessly. So Nuwa was directly assigned to Wu Qi's laboratory, and then there was no further news. Wu Qi finally fitted a silicone head onto the robot, and only then did Zhang Fan realize that this was the robot that wanted to research creating humans. After Nuwa was assembled and awakened, she donned a shiny silver outfit that fit snugly, covering her body entirely except for her head, and she had straight long hair cascading down to her waist. Aren't you supposed to be researching creating humans? Why do you still need to go to space? Can't you perform your research on Earth? Zhang Fan asked curiously. Yes, the gravity here is too strong, affecting my performance. With her new appearance, Nuwa, upon closer inspection, was indistinguishable from a human, with a fair face resembling that of a 16 or 17-year-old student, and she seemed to have never smiled. Do you have any results now? Zhang Fan inferred from her words that she had already created something, which would be even more impressive than Wu Qi. Nuwa took out a metal box the size of a Rubik's Cube from the container. After pressing a certain mechanism, a row of tiny holes opened up at the top of the box, and numerous black dots, smaller than sesame seeds, crawled out. If it weren't for the reflective metal material of the box, one would hardly notice these tiny things. Zhang Fan held his breath, afraid that breathing too heavily would blow them away. As he leaned in to take a closer look, he could barely make out that they were tiny insect-like creatures resembling fleas. They were much smaller than fleas, with a length of less than 1 millimeter. Zhang Fan initially thought that when she mentioned creating life, it meant building a more perfect body for herself, but he was surprised to see such tiny creatures. What could these small robots do? They're still not small enough, but this is the smallest I can make on Earth, which is why I want to go to space. In a zero-gravity environment, they can perform at their maximum potential. The densely packed little robots quickly filled the lid of the box, and Zhang Fan couldn't even count how many there were. How many have you made? Is it easy to create something like this? How did you manage to make them so small? Zhang Fan asked curiously. The tiny robots began to march into the small holes in rows, revealing the metallic surface of the lid bit by bit. I only need to create the first one, and then I can replicate it in bulk. There are 1 million micro-robots in this box. Nuwa was clearly proud of her achievement. The manufacturing difficulty was evidently not as easy as she suggested. Zhang Fan, who considered himself well-informed from spending days online, knew that such small robots had been made before. However, producing so many in such a short time was a significant challenge. The more difficult part was how to communicate and command them to work. From Nuwa's demeanor, these seemed to be non-issues for her. With these micro-robots, our material manufacturing problems will be easily solved. We can establish a mold factory in space, and these robots can operate at the micro and nano scale. In space, their numbers can increase to 100 million, powered by solar energy. As long as we have enough raw materials, we can infinitely replicate the same products. Wu Qi, who had been standing behind them, explained. While conversing with them, Zhang Fan frequently felt overwhelmed, struggling to understand their thoughts. Don't we need to consider the transportation costs for this space factory? Although I am one of the few wealthy individuals on Earth, launching a rocket costs hundreds of millions, and each launch has several small targets. The weight transported is only a few tons. No matter how valuable the temperature difference power generation materials are, the transportation costs could still bankrupt me. This is not like on the ground, where transportation costs can be overlooked. Wu Qi, hearing his concerns, proudly announced, "We have already achieved stable quantum teleportation in the laboratory, and this time we will conduct teleportation experiments in space. There's a high probability of success, and by then, the transportation cost you worry about will be negligible." This news had a greater impact on Zhang Fan than the earlier demonstration of the micro-robots. Remote teleportation. This was something out of a fantasy novel. Do we need to set up 2 teleportation arrays? One moment you're here, and the next moment you just disappear and reappear over there. Soon he encountered the so-called transmission array. The outer shell of the device was made of some alloy, gleaming with a dull metallic luster. Just by looking at its exterior design, it seemed quite sophisticated. At the rear top, there was a row of exquisitely crafted buttons, knobs, and a small LCD display. When Wu Qi opened the 2 square covers at the front of the device, Zhang Fan immediately thought of the old washing machine at home during his childhood. 2 identical devices, resembling turbo washing machines, were placed side by side. The left cover revealed a relatively large space, similar to a washing drum. But the bottom was a tray without a turbo. The right side resembled a spin-dry drum, with an incredibly smooth entire cylinder and a round lid on top, with no visible drainage holes. Nuwa, can you demonstrate it for him? I have other work to do. After Wu Qi finished speaking, he turned around and got busy with other tasks, unwilling to spend more time answering Zhang Fan's questions, as it would waste her precious time. Disliking her long hair being a hassle, Nuwa gathered it at the top of her head, folded it a few times, and picked up a bundle of laser welding wire from the testing platform, transforming it into a strangely shaped bun, which she didn't mind at all. She placed the metal box, which was the size of a Rubik's Cube, into the left device's spin-dry drum, secured both covers, and pressed the button. The LCD screen on top of the device displayed a 15-second countdown, and the spin-dry drum began to whirl with a buzzing sound, rapidly increasing speed. The buzzing gradually faded, and at this point, the speed clearly exceeded that of a washing machine, causing Zhang Fan to feel a slight ringing in his ears. When the countdown ended, a beep sounded, and the device stopped spinning, buzzing for a while before coming to a complete halt. Nuwa opened the 2 covers, took a stainless steel clip identical to those used by dumpling shop owners for grabbing buns, and extracted the metal box she had just placed inside, putting it into the left washing drum. The metallic box appeared much duller now. The left one is called a synthesis box, which is used for transmission and reception, while the right cylinder is called a separation drum, used for quantum separation. I assume you don't need me to explain the basic principles, right? Nuwa's face, reminiscent of a schoolgirl, was extremely serious, as if she were a middle school teacher giving extra lessons to a struggling student. No need, just demonstrate it. Zhang Fan, the student in need of tutoring, quickly adjusted his attitude. In reality, he was utterly confused. Could quantum separation really be this simple? To study fundamental particles, the collider in Europe had a 27-kilometer accelerator tunnel. It was said that many of the acceleration devices there were much larger than this laboratory. So how could it be so easy here, as if doing laundry, and robots could act so unprincipled? In the middle of the synthesis box, corresponding to the washing machine's filter bag, there was a drawer mechanism. Nuwa pulled it open and used the clip to extract a blackened metal block from inside, placing it into the synthesis box on the right. Both covers were secured, and with both hands, she pressed the red button on the far left of both devices. The screens of the two devices displayed a countdown simultaneously, this time only 10 seconds, and throughout the process, no sound was emitted. When the countdown ended, a beep sounded at the same time. Open the synthesis box on the right side, and the metal block transformed into the same metal box as before. If it weren't for being in such a high-end laboratory, where she had spent millions, Zhang Fan would have thought they were magicians, as if performing a magic trick. Now, can you tell me what's in the synthesis box on the left? Nuwa asked like a teacher. It should still be that box, right? Zhang Fan replied, a bit uncertain. Nuwa's tense expression and solemn gaze made him feel a bit insecure. Not bad, not too foolish. Nuwa closed the two synthesis boxes and simultaneously pressed the second button on each box. A buzzing sound of airflow emerged, as if cooling the two boxes. This time, the noise lasted for over a minute before stopping. She took out the two identical boxes and tossed one to Zhang Fan. This one's for you. Let us go. Nuwa placed the box into the metal container, closed the lid, and effortlessly lifted the 2-ton box, leading the way out of the laboratory. A girl with a peculiar bun hairstyle, dressed in shiny silver attire, carrying a 2-meter-long massive metal box, walked down the corridor of the building, with Zhang Fan and Yuan following behind. A 2-ton box would definitely be overweight for a regular passenger elevator, but fortunately, there was a freight elevator, allowing them to descend smoothly to the underground parking lot. Loading this box into his Volvo would likely be a challenge, but luckily, there was also a modified pickup truck parked here, specifically for laboratory purchases. After exiting the parking lot, Zhang Fan deliberately asked Yuan to get out and go to the mall across the street to buy Nuwa some clothes and shoes. Otherwise, her shiny outfit was too eye-catching. Once she put on the new clothes, Nuwa looked a bit more ordinary. While Yuan was shopping, Zhang Fan felt a bit troubled. Sending a space delivery was somewhat difficult for him, given his social anxiety and introverted nature. He had turned down almost all social interactions. And although he had gained fame and wealth, the number of influential people he knew was still limited, mostly acquaintances who wouldn't easily help him. He only knew Engineer Liu from the aerospace department through 2 previous interactions, who should carry some weight, but he wasn't sure if Liu would be willing to help. The task of asking for favors was tough. He remembered Ho Cheng. He should be able to assist. After 2 rings, the call connected, and Ho Cheng's voice came through. It's rare for you to call me. What's up? He knew Zhang Fan wouldn't contact him lightly. I need your help to catch a ride and send a delivery. Are you kidding? What delivery would you need my help with? You, the big tycoon. Are you short of that little money? It's a space delivery. I want to hitch a ride on a Long March 5 rocket to send a 2-ton box to geostationary orbit. Zhang Fan explained seriously. It took Ho Cheng a moment to fully comprehend Zhang Fan's words. Cautiously, he asked, your 1,000-square-meter laboratory isn't enough, and you want to do experiments in space? Yes. It's a very important experiment. Without further ado, Ho Cheng asked him to wait for news, and sure enough, he did not disappoint Zhang Fan. After a dozen minutes, he called back to meet at the east side of the aerospace bridge. Zhang Fan directly met with a vice president, Zhang Xiangyang, at the headquarters of the aerospace group. After hearing their intentions, Vice President Zhang pondered for a moment and said carefully, the launch of the Yao-2 rocket has failed. This launch was of a verification nature, and we did retain carrying capacity. However, we are already in the final assembly stage, and adding a load at this point involves multiple departments, which could lead to many unknown variables. It concerns the overall situation, and it is not something I can decide alone. Here's what we can do. I will initiate a remote meeting, and you can also participate to see if you can persuade everyone. After watching the combat competition, Zhang Fan arrived at the laboratory and then came here, and it was already 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Normally, organizations would be closing down by now, but this place was clearly not a typical organization. The remote meeting was initiated, and within a few minutes, heads of a dozen relevant departments were present. The avatars on the large screen lit up one by one, and Vice President Zhang then introduced Zhang Fan to everyone and presented his launch request. The first question was about the orbit and communication frequency occupied by the satellite, which needed to be applied for in advance, both internationally and domestically. Only after obtaining permission could the launch take place. This process could take a few months to several years, and Zhang Fan's whimsical idea to jump the queue clearly had not followed the proper application procedures, failing at the first hurdle. This issue involved a blind spot in Zhang Fan's knowledge, so he turned to the robot Nuwa standing behind him. The robot's thinking was evidently more thorough, and this question was not difficult for her. We are currently applying for the orbit and frequency. Before we obtain the legal procedures, We can refrain from entering orbit and not conduct regular communication. It will definitely not interfere with the operation and communication of other satellites. Her answer exceeded the understanding of these professionals. In the vastness of space, not communicating and not entering orbit, what was the point of launching? If the orbit and frequency were not obtained after a year, would it just drift in space like a brick? By then, who would know where it would float? That would be more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. This is the research robot Nuwa from my company, Crawling Technology. She will accompany our satellite into space to construct our space laboratory, Crawling number 1, and conduct in-orbit technical experiments. Zheng Fan had to clarify the robot's identity. She is also a robot. Both Ho Chung and Vice President Zhang were quite surprised. Their organization had employed several robots, so they were not surprised by Yuan following Zheng Fan. However, they had no doubts about Nuwa, the extraordinarily beautiful little girl, thinking she was his sister. Actually, Ho Chung still had some doubts. He was well aware of Zheng Fan's social connections. How could a sudden appearance of a living person not raise suspicion? He was just too busy with the matter at hand to ask. Nuwa reached out her left hand to Zheng Fan, showing a degree of mutual understanding. Zheng Fan took out the box he had just given him and placed it in her hand. The box opened again, revealing a row of small holes. And one by one, miniature robots crawled out and lined up. Both Ho Chung and Vice President Zhang curiously leaned in to take a closer look. The name Crawling Technology was indeed fitting, but these were just too small. It was a bit hard on the eyes. The other participants in the video conference clearly found it more convenient to look at the two individuals on screen, and some impatient ones had already asked what was going on. These tiny robots not only resembled fleas in appearance, but could actually jump. 3 of them leaped simultaneously and landed directly on the camera at the top of the large video screen, standing atop the lens, which was about the size of a fingernail. Remarkably, the 3 tiny robots occupied only a tiny area. When this area was magnified on the display, it was incredibly clear, allowing everyone to see it distinctly. Not only did they resemble fleas, but the details when enlarged were strikingly similar. If one were unaware beforehand, it would be hard to imagine these were tiny robots. These micro-robots will assist us in conducting experiments on special thermoelectric materials, solar power materials, and high-resistant silicone materials in space. If this launch is successful, these new material technologies can be provided to you free of charge. The speaker had a keen sense of timing during negotiations, knowing precisely when to say what. The 3 technologies she mentioned are evidently crucial for deep space exploration, especially the thermoelectric materials, which are a weakness for the country. There is much work to be done for future Mars and lunar explorations. Your skin is obviously different from the other robots. Is this high-resistant material? Can it ensure smooth operation in space? A female researcher in her 30s asked on the video. The difficulty of producing this material on the ground is extremely high. Only the skin on my head and some joints are made of this material. My body requires a special insulating suit to maintain temperature for activities in space. As she spoke, the speaker removed her outer coat, revealing a shiny silver outfit underneath. Solar-powered suit? It looks very lightweight. Yes, this suit only needs an hour of sunlight exposure to provide enough energy for my activities for an entire day, while also maintaining body temperature. How large will your unfolding laboratory be, and what method will you use to drive it? Finally, a department leader raised the core question. The initial unfolding will have a volume of 8 cubic meters, and once in orbit, it can expand to about 1,000 cubic meters, using ion propulsion. The speaker answered seriously, but her responses seemed absurd to the experts. If it weren't for her identity as an inventor of artificial intelligence, they might not have paid her any attention. So large. That volume is too big. The rocket space is insufficient. It can't fit inside. 1,000 cubic meters after unfolding? That's larger than the International Space Station. Is it inflatable? This is too far-fetched. The speaker turned and brought a rectangular metal box mentioned earlier to the front of the video camera and placed it on the ground. This is the actual object we are going to launch. I will enter this box, which is less than 1 cubic meter. Ah, so small. How can you manage to expand it so large? How can that accommodate several devices? This is outrageous. Even with money, you can't be this reckless, right? This is simply nonsense. Chapter 188. Factory. The video conference lasted for more than 3 hours, with dozens of questions raised. Nuwa's answers repeatedly challenged the participants' perceptions, leading to incredulity and doubts about the feasibility of her claims. Many expressed skepticism, and a few even left the meeting midway. As the clock approached 10 o'clock in the evening, Vice President Zhang announced the adjournment, stating that they would reconvene the next morning to further discuss the matter. Given the significance of the issue, which involved the efforts of over 100,000 people within the group spanning several years, they had to be cautious. Mr. Zhang, you may return for now. Within 3 days, we will give you a clear answer, whether it succeeds or not. Vice President Zhang, with an apologetic expression, escorted them to the building's entrance, making Zheng Fan feel somewhat embarrassed by the politeness. Earlier, Ho Chung had been curious about the metal box mentioned by Nuwa. Although the main topic was serious, he didn't inquire further at the time. However, on the way back, he couldn't resist asking, "Is this box really 2 tons heavy? You can give it a try?" Nuwa placed the box on the ground and let him test it. Ho Chung grabbed the handle with both hands, exerting all his strength, his face turning red, but the box didn't budge. "I believe what you say now. I will find a way to fully support this launch. Just wait for good news." Although Ho Chung only partially understood the advanced principles discussed during the video conference, he trusted Zheng Fan, who had been creating miracles since they met. Even if it went beyond the ordinary this time, he wouldn't be surprised. Watching Ho Chung's vehicle disappear, Zheng Fan turned back and asked, "Nuwa, are you going to the auto repair shop or the laboratory? The launch clearly won't be that easy. We'll have to wait a few days for news." "Of course. I'm heading back to the laboratory." The questions those guys asked earlier were very enlightening. "My plan can be even more perfect. We will be able to do even more by then." Nuwa's response was not unexpected for Zheng Fan. However, he remained somewhat skeptical about what she and Wu Qi had said today. If he were the leader of the aerospace group, he would have kicked them out immediately, thinking, "What kind of scam is this? You think tossing a 2-ton object into the sky will turn it into a large space laboratory? Are we playing house here? What about all our efforts over the years? Ridiculous." It must be said that the CEO had a great vision. Not only did he receive them courteously, but he also gathered people to seriously evaluate the claims. No matter how bizarre they sounded, he didn't dismiss them, leaving all possibilities open. It now seemed that many people were swayed by Nuwa's words. The responsibility was immense, but the actual risk didn't seem that high. If it succeeded, it would truly launch a significant satellite, shocking the world once again. The next day, before receiving any news from Vice President Zhang, Chen Fei called to report the outcome of the first negotiation with the Tangshan boss. The price differences were minimal, but the other party requested a face-to-face meeting. Wanting to meet this legendary figure, Fenghua Glass Company, Limited was established 10 years ago. The owner, Lu Jinqi, initially made his fortune in wholesale building materials. After accumulating some capital, he shifted to manufacturing, establishing this glass factory. With skillful management and seizing market opportunities, the company's assets grew from just over 10 million at the beginning to over 2 billion today, with annual net profits exceeding the initial investment. After Lu Jinqi's business grew, he became dissatisfied with the glass factory and, following the trend, set his sights on the real estate industry. To get involved, he befriended a reputed big shot in the city, as entering real estate without connections and strength is challenging. Unfortunately, while his dreams were grand, reality was harsh. He hoped to make a fortune through this connection, but the big shot had his eyes on Lu's substantial wealth. The usual tricks never fail. Lu Jinqi had over 200 million, but most of it was tied up in fixed assets like factory equipment and raw materials, along with a lot of accounts receivable. His cash flow, like many small bosses, was not abundant. To participate in the Big Shots project, he mortgaged the factory to secure a loan of 100 million, expecting hefty returns, but before any returns arrived, the loan was due. To make matters worse, he realized too late that the lender and the Big Shot were in cahoots. They had opened their pockets and were waiting for him to fall into their trap. When he tried to withdraw his investment, he was told the real estate company had no money. The buildings were not even topped off, and wages and material payments were outstanding. The mortgage loan was not an option. When he considered selling shares to cash out, the Big Shot offered a generous price of 5 million. While that was enough for an ordinary person to live without worry for a lifetime, unfortunately, it was not even enough to cover the loan interest. The only way out was to sell the factory, and the Big Shot was reasonable enough to let him find a buyer, as long as the 100 million loan and the interest owed were settled. Before the meeting, Chen Fei briefed Zheng Fan on Lu Jinqi's situation, ensuring he was prepared. They not only needed to acquire the factory, but also ensure it could operate normally. Otherwise, relying solely on their external status in an unfamiliar place would be risky, potentially wasting money and leading to frustration. The meeting took place in a high-end Sichuan restaurant on Dawang Road, with luxurious decor and tall, beautiful waitresses. Lu Jinqi, along with a slightly plump middle-aged woman, his original wife, met them at the door, displaying a very humble attitude. Inside the opulent private room was a large table over 3 meters in diameter, with enough space for 10 people, but only 5 were present. In such situations, Yuan usually stood, as she didn't need to eat, and standing was the most energy-efficient posture. The meal was quite awkward. Zheng Fan did not drink, nor did Chen Fei, and Lu Jinqi felt shy about pouring for himself, turning the dinner into just a meal. Not drinking saved time, and Zheng Fan typically ate quickly. Within half an hour, he was done, and seeing him put down his chopsticks, Lu Jinqi, who had lost his appetite, followed suit and called the waiter to change the tea, being very attentive. "Boss Lu, both Chun and I are outsiders in the glass building materials industry. If you don't mind, we can stick to the price you discussed. The factory will reserve 5 of the shares for you and hand over the management to you. We will send financial and technical personnel and later invest in technological upgrades to build a new production line for our exclusive technology in power generation glass. How do you feel about that? Zheng Fan expressed the plan he discussed with Chen Fei, and he clearly felt it had a better effect. This is what I've been hoping for. Mr. Zheng, rest assured, I will manage it diligently and not let you down. Lu Zhenqi achieved his goal and felt relieved. Our acquisition of this factory is mainly for new technology validation. Initially, we were focused on your factory building and land area, which will save us a lot of time and trouble. Although your shares will decrease, the future profits may not be less than your investment in real estate. Zheng Fan didn't want to make empty promises, so he spoke generally, said a few polite words, and prepared to leave. Who doesn't know that your level is world-class? Being able to board your big ship is a blessing in disguise for me, and I will definitely work hard and not disappoint you, whether sincere or not. Lu Zhenqi's words were incredibly sincere, making Zheng Fan feel goosebumps all over. In any case, the goal of acquiring the factory was achieved, and this meal was not in vain. Lu Zhenqi continued to manage, while Chen Fei only sent a few people to take over the financial aspects and began dismantling an old production line, following the drawings provided by Wu Qi to start renovations and prepare for new equipment installation. Chapter 189. Micro Machines back in the luxurious office. Zheng Fan saw that the piece of calligraphy he wrote yesterday had already been framed and hung on the wall. He couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. It was unusual to hang such a piece in an office, especially when there was nothing as impressive as Wu Zhan's grand ambitions. This piece is quite nice. I had them hang it up. You're the boss. You can hang whatever you want. Chen Fei said. If you like it, it's yours. Take it. Really? Then you need to sign it. I want to keep it well. All right, it's up to you. So, Yuan ground the ink again. And Zheng Fan signed the piece on the paper he removed, dedicating it to his friend Miss Chen Fei in a specific year and month. After signing, there was still some ink left, and not wanting Yuan's effort to go to waste, Zheng Fan laid out another sheet of paper. He thought for a moment and wrote a piece called Lingjiang Xian by Yang Shun from the Ming Dynasty, which was adapted into the theme song of the CCTV version of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Those who don't know the lyrics should have heard the song. To avoid any misrecognition of characters, he wrote in regular script and finished just as the ink ran out. Nothing wasted. Actually, his strongest suit was regular script, and he had put the most effort into it. Cursive and semi-cursive scripts depended on his state at the time. Unfortunately, Chen Fei didn't understand these, and she was not very satisfied with his piece. Who hangs this kind of calligraphy in an office? Each stroke looks like a primary school student wrote it. You just said I could hang whatever I wanted. This one, find someone to frame it nicely and hang it across from this desk. At your command, big boss. All right, let's get down to business. We are preparing to launch a geostationary satellite, but the application for the orbit and communication frequency will take a long time. We might be running out of time. Please help check if there are any companies domestically or internationally selling resources in this area. The sooner, the better. Zheng Fan suddenly thought of this question at the dinner table. Can the company go public through a shell listing? And what about the satellite? Are you joking? I'm serious. This is a task assigned to me by our chief scientist. She assigned you a task, but who is the boss between you two? Of course, I'm the boss. If she asks right, I'll listen to her. If it weren't for her dedication to research, I'd consider making her the general manager. So I'm just a backup? You have the reputation, she has the expertise. They complement each other. It doesn't affect your role as a lawyer. After all, she is a robot and can't handle many things directly. Zheng Fan explained the original plan. It's too late to discuss this now. I've already resigned from my job, and you can't let me down. How could I? Why would I let you down? Where would I find a capable and trustworthy general manager? You keep busy, I'm leaving. On the way back, he received a call from Su Kan, asking him to come to the company for an important discussion. He had been busy buying a house and selecting talent at the robotics factory, and hadn't been to the Brainwave company for a while, making Zheng Fan feel somewhat inadequate. The Brainwave medical division occupied the second floor of the building. Su Kan was waiting for him in the office and joked when he saw him enter. Boss Zheng has graced us with his presence. I apologize for not welcoming you properly. All right, you just had to call, and I came right over. What is the matter? Zheng Fan got straight to the point. I heard from Li Hong that your lab has developed micro-robots. Can I take a look? Su Kan asked. Zheng Fan had only shown Li Hong the robots that morning. It was surprising that it had already reached Su Kan's ears. These micro-robots are difficult to make and even harder to control. Zheng Fan couldn't do it. But Yuan could. As long as the robot received authorization from Yuan, it could be controlled, though the control level also depended on the actual capabilities of each robot. After watching Yuan's demonstration, Su Kan asked with shining eyes, can these micro-robots navigate through human blood vessels for clearance? Their size is a few hundred micrometers, right? Most human blood vessels could accommodate them. If they can communicate effectively, they would be great for internal examinations, working alongside our surgical robots and intelligent diagnostic systems. This could be another medical breakthrough. Yuan, you explain. You can communicate directly with Nuwa. Zheng Fan had only had the robots for a day and had limited understanding. This robot is specifically designed for the development of new materials and is not suitable for traveling in blood. Its waterproof capability is also poor. If there is a demand, we can design a medical robot specifically for use inside the human body. Yuan acted as Nuwa's spokesperson, conveying the message. Customizable? That is amazing, Sukin exclaimed, standing up and pacing around the office, pondering the customization requirements. It should be this small, ideally even smaller, within 10 micrometers, able to swim against the flow in viscous liquids. Waterproofing is essential, and it should resist acid and alkali corrosion, especially acid. It should be able to locate precisely within the human body and ideally send back real-time image information. That might be difficult, but it could have a sealed container for targeted sampling or drug delivery. That should be it. Sukin made a long list of demands and then stared intently at Yuan, asking, is it doable? Can it be made? Meeting these requirements. The smallest size currently achievable is 300 micrometers. Anything smaller can only be realized in space. Yuan paused for a moment before responding, clearly communicating with the goddess Nuwa. Sure, 300 micrometers can reach most parts of the human body and can solve many problems. How long will it take to produce? One isn't enough. We need a large batch. The more the better. It will take 100 work hours, scheduled to start a month from now. What does she mean? Sukin was puzzled by this seemingly vague answer. These robots are workaholics. They think even a single extra word is a waste of time. Your customized robot research will start a month later, and it's expected to take 100 hours to complete. Zheng Fan explained to him. What research are they busy with? Are they trying to dominate the world? Sukin joked. We're preparing to launch a satellite. Didn't I just say that smaller-scale robots can only be made in space? So you might have to wait a bit longer. Zheng Fan couldn't help but boast. Forget about a month, even if it takes a year or 10 years. If we can really create such finely controlled micro-machines, at least half of humanity's diseases could be cured. You're simply a bodhisattva, doing immeasurable good. Sukin exclaimed loudly. I can't take the credit. It's their achievement. I can only be considered a talent scout at best. Zheng Fan humbly replied. Without you, where would they come from? I'm increasingly impressed by you, young comrade. Keep it up. I have high hopes for you. Sukin momentarily got serious every 2 seconds, but immediately returned to his playful nature, patting Zheng Fan on the shoulder. After leaving Sukin's office, Zheng Fan stopped by Li Hong's office, as it was almost time to get off work. They had agreed to leave together. Zheng Fan then went to Lu Yifun's lab to check on their research progress. There was some progress, but it wasn't significant. This research is entirely different from what the robots are doing. Humanity still understands too little about its own brain and consciousness, especially the mechanisms of playing games and dreams, which remains a case of knowing that it exists but not understanding why. It seems that thorough research will take a long time. Chapter 190. Expedition 2. Just as Zheng Fan and Li Hong returned home, he received a call from Vice President Zhang of the Aerospace Group, informing him that his launch application had been approved. Tomorrow is the last day for the final assembly of the rocket, and he should quickly send the satellite to the launch site in Hainan. So urgent? The passenger plane can't carry such a heavy satellite. I need to arrange a charter flight. I wonder if it can fly tomorrow. After receiving the call, Zheng Fan felt happy, but soon became worried again. You haven't used that black card much, right? The bank has a VIP lounge at the airport. Let them arrange it for you. It saves time and effort compared to finding someone yourself. Paying for services means you don't have to rely on others. Li Hong reminded him. Right. I always forget about that. I haven't used it at all. I've always paid with my phone, and that card has been sitting in the drawer. Zheng Fan thought about it and felt a bit regretful. The bank always flatters truly wealthy individuals, and state-owned banks are no exception. Their requests receive prompt responses. Although the items being transported are somewhat special, they are not contraband. For them, fulfilling such requests is merely a small task that can also enhance their performance. They would love for Zheng Fan to trouble them more often in the future. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, the flight will go directly to Hainan Milan International Airport. You can arrive at the airport early, Zheng Fan instructed. I don't know how many days I'll be staying there, and the launch date is still uncertain. Just be careful at home. I know, you need to pay extra attention to safety while you're out there. Have you told Ho Chung about this? Li Hong asked while helping him pack his luggage. He has helped quite a bit with this matter and should have gained some favors. I feel bad about bothering him all the time. When you ask someone for help and things work out, you should always let them know and express your gratitude. Staying silent is not an option. All right, I'll call him tomorrow. Call him now. It's a matter of attitude. In fact, even if Zheng Fan didn't make the call, Ho Chung already knew the outcome. This matter wouldn't have been possible without his push. Even Vice President Zhang couldn't have done it alone due to the internal opposition. When Ho Chung heard that Zheng Fan had arranged a charter flight for tomorrow morning at 6, he smiled. I was planning to help you arrange a military aircraft to save you some money. Since you're not short on cash, that's even better. I'll go with you tomorrow. I want to experience private charter service too. Yuan. Inform the lab that I'll be picking Nuwa up at the airport tomorrow morning at 5. Have them get ready. Zhang Fan reminded. Already notified. At 5 in the early winter morning, the sky was still pitch black. When Zhang Fan and Yuan arrived at Tianji building, Nuwa was already waiting downstairs with her suitcase. Ho Cheng opened the car door and got out from another vehicle. This robot is really stubborn. She knows me. Yet she wants to get in the car and wait. Does she think I'm a kidnapper? Ho Cheng grumbled. Scientists have their quirks. Just understand. Zhang Fan couldn't reveal his own background. She has the same attitude towards me. I'm not more important than you. We need to support our own. They switched to a Raptor pickup truck and headed to the airport. Upon arrival, there was a dedicated reception, and all the processes were expedited. Nuwa's luggage had been requested in advance, and after passing through a special security channel, it was directly taken onto the plane. The suitcase was so heavy that it was secured in the center of the cabin. Zhang Fan ended up spending double the charter fee for this suitcase, but then again, he wouldn't even need the charter for himself. Thinking about the launch costs, this amount was nothing. At 6 o'clock, the plane took off on time into the night sky. This charter only had Zhang Fan and Ho Cheng as passengers, along with Yuan and Nuwa, the 2 robots, 2 flight attendants, and 2 pilots for the 50-seat aircraft. The flight was expected to last over 4 hours. For the first time, Zhang Fan saw the sunrise from the plane. Above the vast clouds, the golden sun leapt into view, and the entire world seemed to be bathed in a golden hue. A truly spectacular sight. After watching the sunrise and having a simple breakfast provided on the plane, it felt quite ordinary compared to the hundreds of thousands spent on the charter flight. The 2 beautiful flight attendants had impeccable service, being attentive and warm, and Ho Cheng chatted happily with them, making them laugh continuously. At 10 in the morning, the plane landed safely at the international airport. The bank had prepared a powerful vehicle as requested in the VIP service lounge at the airport, a 4.0-liter Land Cruiser, which should accommodate them well. Interestingly, the vehicle did not support autonomous driving and came with a dedicated driver, but Ho Cheng sent both the driver and the car away. After making a phone call, a driverless Range Rover appeared in front of them in less than 10 minutes. The launch base in Wenchang is located at the easternmost protrusion of Hainan Island, a short distance from the coast, and only about 50 to 60 kilometers from the airport in Haikou. Most of the journey from the airport was on the highway, with very few vehicles on the road and no congestion, reaching the launch base in less than an hour. Vice President Zhang was waiting for them at the entrance, greeting them politely and introducing his colleagues, directing their Range Rover to park near the rocket vertical assembly testing facility. While buildings over 100 meters high are common, a 100-meter-high gate is rare, and this was the first time Zhang Fan had seen one. The 2 large gates were tightly closed, and they followed Vice President Zhang and others through the staff passage. The interior scene was even more shocking. On a massive platform, rockets towering dozens of meters high stood in the center, requiring one to tilt their head back at a steep angle to see the top. They took the elevator to the upper fairing assembly platform, where in the center of the 5-meter diameter top platform, a small platform was fixed, with 4 spherical devices at the bottom and 2 trumpet-shaped nozzles in the center. The small platform was connected to the rocket by 4 thick support legs, and several personnel in work uniforms were operating it. This is the upper stage of the Expedition 2, which will send the Practice 20 satellite and your, reptile laboratory to the designated orbit. Vice President Zhang introduced to them. You can hand over your payload to us now. We need to secure it. An engineer in his 30s, who had been following them, reminded. This thing is heavy. Should we let her carry it up? Zhang Fan asked. No need. We also have robots here. Number 6, come over. Zhang Fan then noticed that among the staff installing the upper stage, there were also robots dressed in work uniforms, wearing hats and masks, looking very much like humans at first glance. These robots are very capable, with strong learning abilities and considerable strength, which can save us a lot of time. Without their outstanding performance, this launch would not have been successful. Vice President Zhang praised. Nuwa placed the metal box she had been holding onto the ground, opened the lid, and laid down in the humanoid-shaped recess near the handle of the box, perfectly fitting into it. She crossed her hands over her abdomen and closed her eyes. The lid of the box slowly closed by itself with a click, locking shut. Robot number 6 easily picked up the box with both hands, lifted it above its head, and gently placed it on the edge of the upper platform. Then it climbed up the ladder and carefully moved the box to the center of the platform, securing it with 2 metal strips, one long and one short, arranged in a cross shape. The ends of the strips were tightly connected to the platform with 4 special bolts. Another worker came up to check the fastening of the box, and after confirming everything was in order, they descended the ladder to the rocket platform. After a brief communication, the significantly larger Practice number 20 satellite was slowly lowered down. The satellite had its own support structure, perfectly suspended above Nuwa's metal box. 4 workers went up to adjust its position and secured it using the same kind of special bolts. Chapter 191. Pre-launch, once the enormous satellite was secured, the fairing, nearly 20 meters tall and wider than the 5-meter diameter rocket body, slowly descended, aligning perfectly with the rocket without needing adjustments. The staff busily completed the final assembly of the rocket in a vertical position. After watching the final assembly process, they returned to the office with Deputy General Zhang and his secretary. Once seated with T, Deputy General Zhang said, "We need to check everything once more before transferring to the launch station for the final integration tests, and then wait for the launch. This installation is truly meticulous. Even tightening a screw takes a long time and requires multiple confirmations." Ho Chung, who had been observing the entire process, exclaimed, "Those are explosive bolts. If even one is not installed correctly, it could fail to detonate when it should or detonate prematurely, affecting the entire launch success. How can we not be meticulous?" Zheng Fan couldn't help but reply, "Indeed, Mr. Zheng is right. What we installed just now is the target for this launch. If our rocket flies successfully below, but the satellite and rocket fail to separate in space, that would be a failure too. The last failure could be attributed to our lack of expertise, but if we fail because of improperly installed bolts, we would become a laughingstock." Deputy General Zhang agreed. "Now that the installation is complete, will we move to the launch tower soon? Can we launch tonight?" Ho Chung, realizing he had exposed his ignorance, quickly changed the topic. "Haha, Director Ho is joking. It won't be that quick. Today we are taking turns working overtime, and we should finish the checks by tonight. Tomorrow morning, we will transfer to the launch tower, and if everything goes smoothly, we should be able to launch within a week." Deputy General Zhang laughed heartily, and then quickly composed himself to explain to Ho Chung. The office door was knocked on, and Deputy General Zhang's secretary walked in, holding several printed contract documents, giving a stack to both Zheng Fan and Deputy General Zhang, and then standing to the side. "Mr. Zheng, we coordinated with our brother unit and have a spare synchronous orbit and communication frequency available for your use, which will save you a lot of trouble. If you were to apply for it yourself, it would take time, and you might not get such a good position. Of course, your side needs to provide some financial compensation. The above is the transfer contract for this, and below are our launch contract and accident insurance contract. Please take a look. And if there are no issues, we need to finalize the contracts today. Otherwise, it might affect the subsequent launch process." Vice President Zhang briefly introduced the contract contents to Zheng Fan and then remained silent to give him time to read carefully. The contract was several dozen pages long, but fortunately, he only needed to check the parties involved, dates, and amounts. The transfer of the orbit and communication frequency was priced at 100 million renminbi. The expedited launch fee was 1 billion renminbi, and the insurance amount was 100 million renminbi, totaling 1.2 billion renminbi, which was quite easy to calculate. In just a few months, Zheng Fan had already spent most of the bonus money. Luckily, he had followed Secretary Zheng Fang's advice to participate in the dividend through a holding company. Otherwise, he would be in a tight spot after paying the dividend tax. Such an important contract, and you didn't even read it carefully before signing. You really have guts. After leaving Vice President Zhang's office, Ho Chung joked. Once the contract was signed, they had nothing else to do for the moment. They thought about going back. The base would notify him the day before the launch to come and watch. He could also stay and wait. The hotel affiliated with the base had booked a luxurious suite for him for free, with all meals included. These were standard contracts, such a large unit. And the people involved were introduced by you, so they wouldn't deceive me, right? If I get tricked, I'll just accept it. Zheng Fan was quite open-minded. They charge you how much? You calculated it pretty quickly. I didn't even see the numbers clearly. Altogether it's 1.2 billion. Zheng Fan replied casually. What? 1.2 billion? Damn, these guys are outrageous. No way, I'm going back to confront them. Ho Chung reacted and turned to run back. Zheng Fan hurriedly caught up with him and held him back, saying, "Why are you so anxious when I'm not worried about spending money? You really don't mind. I've inquired in advance. The cost of launching a geosynchronous satellite is over 40,000 per kilogram. Your launch weight of 2 tons should be at most 100 to 200 million. Even if it's expedited, it shouldn't be that much. They're just taking advantage. You too. What were you thinking, signing such a contract?" Ho Chung was still indignant, as Zheng Fan held him back. "Anyway, this money is going to their unit. I'll just consider it as supporting the country's space industry. Besides, the last-minute addition has caused them quite a bit of trouble. So I'll treat it as compensation." Zheng Fan genuinely thought this way. "Let go of me. If you don't care, why should I be anxious? Last time our company had a dividend of 3 billion, and through the holding company, we didn't have to pay dividend tax. But I always felt a bit uneasy about it. So this time I'll treat it as paying taxes. Spending the money will give me peace of mind." Zheng Fan reassured Ho Chung, and no matter what, he truly considered him a friend. They stayed overnight, and the next morning watched the huge rocket along with the platform being transported to the launch tower. Since the launch date was still uncertain, it didn't make sense to wait there, so the two took a flight back to Yanjing together. In the days leading up to the launch, The acquisition of Fenghua Glass, led by Chun Fei, was completed. In the presence of the mortgager, both parties signed the agreement discreetly. With the cooperation of factory owner Lu Zhenqi, the financial team had already moved into the factory before the signing, and the construction of new production workshops had begun, all proceeding smoothly and quietly. On the 5th day after their return to Yanjing, Zheng Fan received a notification that the rocket would be launched tomorrow evening at an opportune time. If he wanted to watch it live, he needed to arrive before dark the next day. He called Ho Chung, who expressed that he wouldn't be going to the site and preferred to watch the live broadcast on TV instead. That evening, he asked Li Hong if she was going to watch the rocket launch. She laughed and said, "With my big belly, I won't be flying. Watching it live and on TV is pretty much the same. It's just spectators watching the excitement." Both of them were unwilling to go to the site, and Zheng Fan hesitated a bit himself. He then looked up and saw the robot bodyguard charging by the wall and asked, Yuan, do you want to go see the launch live? There's no point in going to the site. If you're concerned about the results, you can watch in the laboratory, where you can get the information from Yuan earlier. Yuan replied, "Right, they can perform quantum teleportation, and the scale of quantum manipulation is large enough. So quantum communication would also be a breeze. This method is indeed more reliable than electromagnetic communication." Zheng Fan realized, Yuan, can you live stream the signals received in the lab at our home? That would be more convenient, and they are quite busy with their experiments. We also wouldn't have to go and add to Wu Qi's troubles. Li Hong suggested. Sure, Wu Qi will make a simple communicator, and we can pick it up tomorrow to receive the information synchronously. Zheng Fan suddenly felt that this chief scientist wasn't so unreasonable after all. Little did he know that she simply found their past visits too troublesome. The arrival of Nuwa indeed provided significant assistance to Wu Qi, not only in inventing micro-robots for the synthesis of new materials, but also in research in the quantum field, which has now reached a world-leading level. It's not just leading but far ahead, by at least 30 years. Chapter 192. After the launch, the simple communicator made by Wu Qi was indeed very simple. To an unknowing person, it would first resemble an oversized ashtray. Its flat, round shape looked like a flying saucer, with a square groove in the center surrounded by an irregular circle of hemispherical glass, resembling a layer of glass beads of varying sizes, some as large as green beans and others smaller than sesame seeds. The bottom of the communicator was made of a shiny, unidentified metallic material that, at first glance, looked like metal, but felt like silicone when touched and had a certain elasticity. This makeshift communicator was clearly not simple. It was only finished by nightfall. Wu Qi sent a robot assistant to deliver it to Yuan, who opened the door, and then it turned around and left. The official relaunch of the Long March 5 2 years later was not widely publicized. It was only broadcasted on the news channel, just minutes before the launch. The footage switched to the launch pad, where the massive rocket stood tall. The on-site host was enthusiastically introducing the situation, and then, as per usual, interviewed the team members involved in the project. Yuan placed the communicator in the center of the coffee table and inserted the square box containing the micro-robot into the square groove at the center of the communicator. She pressed down gently, activating the communicator, and a circle of glass beads around it began to light up one by one. Countless bright spots emitted light from different angles, gradually converging above the communicator to form a three-dimensional projection. This place was familiar to Zheng Fan. It was the interior view of the nose cone at the top of a rocket. Logically, the nose cone should be completely sealed without any light at this moment. Yet the scene in this three-dimensional projection was clear and bright, unlike a video captured by a camera. Yuan gently slid her hand along the edge of the projection, causing the entire projection to slowly rotate at an angle before gradually coming to a stop. The large object above was the Shijian 20 experimental satellite, the item originally scheduled for launch, while the retracted solar panels were on the side. Zheng Fan introduced the content in the image to Li Hong. "What are we launching?" Li Hong asked curiously. "It's right underneath this satellite." Zheng Fan slid his finger upward along the edge of the projection, changing the angle to reveal a small rectangular metal box beneath the satellite, secured to the base by two metal strips in a cross shape. What can such a small thing do when launched? Inside is Nuwa. She's a high-intelligence robot, possibly even more capable than Wu Qi. Zheng Fan said proudly. "I don't know about her intelligence, but spending money is a talent. You haven't even spent the 600 million you gave Wu Qi. And this Nuwa has already burned through 1.2 billion. Your dividends won't last long at this rate. I wonder what you'll do when they're all gone." Li Hong joked. "They're doing research. If they don't invest, how can they achieve results? Nowadays, these high-tech products aren't they all created by pouring in a lot of money at the initial stage?" Just then, the rocket beside the launch tower on the TV began to ignite, slowly rising off the launch pad, and the three-dimensional projection on the coffee table started to tremble slightly. The weather tonight wasn't great on the television screen. The rocket disappeared shortly after takeoff, leaving only the glow from the rocket engine's tail flame. The 4 blue flames surrounding it were the light emitted by the 4 booster engines burning liquid oxygen and kerosene, while the central yellow flame was from the main rocket's hydrogen-oxygen engine. Soon, even this light vanished, as the rocket had moved far away from the launch site. The TV screen switched to the camera view above the rocket. Within 3 minutes of takeoff, the 4 boosters shut down and subsequently separated. 5 minutes later, the nose cone detached, and the rocket officially entered space. The three-dimensional projection on the coffee table suddenly dimmed, the trembling stopped, and the main body of the rocket, along with the distant outline of Earth, became visible. The television switched to a three-dimensional animation of the demonstration. 8 minutes later, the long first stage of the rocket completed its mission, shut down, and fell away, while the second stage engine ignited, continuing to push forward. 13 minutes later, the second stage engine shut down, and the star-rocket combination entered the automatic gliding phase. The TV broadcast stopped, and the host and guests shifted topics to casual conversation. The three-dimensional projection above the coffee table remained clear and stable, but the background changed so slowly that it seemed almost motionless. Half an hour later, after the second ignition of the booster, the completed mission of the second stage rocket separated and extinguished its engines, while the upper stage of the Expedition 2 continued to advance. The upper stage of Expedition 2 is akin to the third stage of past rockets. It has sufficient thrust and originally did not require a third stage. But we suddenly added it in, causing concerns about insufficient thrust, so they decided to use it, Zheng Fan explained to Li Hong. No sooner had he finished speaking than the largest satellite in the three-dimensional image separated and drifted farther away, with its solar panels beginning to slowly unfold. The launch commander announced on television that the satellite had entered the designated synchronous transfer orbit, and the launch was a complete success. The scene shifted to the launch command center, where many people were cheering and celebrating, and then the host announced the end of the live broadcast. After a brief closing credit, an advertisement quickly cut in. Is that it for the live broadcast? What about our satellite? Aren't they going to follow up? Li Hong exclaimed in surprise. How could that be? The television station's job is done, and our satellite is still moving, right? They are worried that our box might drift chaotically in orbit, so they assigned us a vacant trajectory to directly push it into position with this upper stage. Zheng Fan chuckled. That's more like it. Otherwise, that money would be wasted. On the three-dimensional projection, a row of small holes suddenly appeared on the surface of the metal box, and black dots began to crawl out, increasing in number. The metal strips securing the box quickly became covered by these tiny robots, gradually disappearing. These tiny robots can eat metal? The scene took Zheng Fan by surprise. Not at all. Metal cannot replenish their energy consumption. They are merely disassembling and transporting. Any material in space can be useful. We can't waste anything. The voice of Nuwa echoed. The metal box opened automatically, and Nuwa emerged, walking out of the box. Originally, Expedition 2 was flying at an angle from the lower left to the upper right, but after Nuwa stepped out and stood on the platform of Expedition 2, the three-dimensional image suddenly changed its angle, and Expedition 2 began to fly directly upward. The massive outline of the Earth that had just disappeared reappeared, showing sunlight reflecting off its surface, half dark and half bright, just like the entire platform. Nuwa stood on the platform, facing the direction of the sun. Her silver-white clothing transformed into an unusual black under the sunlight, her long hair cascading down, parted and pulled in front of her. She moved as if in a weightless environment, each motion very natural, her hair flowing gracefully, as if she were still on Earth. From the box beneath her feet, she took out a rectangular metal box about the size of a pillow, pressed a mechanism, and a row of small holes appeared on the side of the metal box facing the sun. Transparent bubbles quickly sprayed out in a continuous stream, resembling bullets from a machine gun. The bubbles started off the size of soybeans, sparkling with 7 colors in the sunlight, slowly expanding to the size of a volleyball. And then they stopped expanding, changing color from transparent to white. In just a few minutes, the entire Expedition 2 was surrounded by these white, volleyball-sized objects. Initially, they were distributed randomly, some far and some near, but they did not completely disperse, always remaining around the vessel. As the number of these spheres increased, they began to compress against each other, transforming into hexagonal shapes, resembling a beehive, creating a massive spherical space around Expedition 2, completely isolating it from the outside world. By this time, the surface of Expedition 2 was covered with black micro-robots, with supports, engines, and liquid tanks gradually disappearing, thoroughly disassembled by these robots. Chapter 193. Reptilian. The entire three-dimensional projection space was enveloped by the white spheres, with the pitch-black space outside and the immense outline of the Earth reflecting sunlight completely vanishing. Nuwa picked up another box, and under her operation, a row of small holes appeared on one side. This time, however, black long needles shot out from the holes. each precisely guided to strike the center of the hexagonal planes formed by the compressed white spheres. The microrobots had completely devoured Expedition 2 and began to attach themselves to the white inner walls of the spheres. Initially, their arrangement seemed random, but they gradually began to gather around the tips of the black needles, slowly expanding outward. From each needle tip, several lines radiated outward, connecting with the surrounding needle tips. These microrobots, resembling tiny fleas, were less than a millimeter long, yet their numbers were astonishing, quickly filling the interior of the sphere. The entire internal space of the sphere was filled with tightly arranged triangles, with the black lines forming complete loops around the interior, intersecting at points that represented the tips of the needles. From the separation of Practice XX to now, it had only been about 10 minutes, and the scene in the three-dimensional projection had dramatically shifted, as if transitioning from a science fiction world to a magical one, with Nuwa as the marvelous magician. Nuwa opened another box, this time without spraying anything out. Instead, the equipment inside looked familiar to Zheng Fan, resembling a miniature version of the quantum transporter from the laboratory. Each time she pressed a button, after a few seconds, she could take out a metallic box filled with micro-robots from the small synthesis chamber. Once the metal box was placed aside, it revealed a row of small holes and began to release micro-robots. It feels so magical. Is this technology or magic? Li Hong murmured. Not only was Li Hong dumbfounded, but Zheng Fan was also inexplicably shocked. The answers Nuwa provided during their earlier visit to the Aerospace Group headquarters had seemed unbelievable, much like the experts in the field. Now, with the evidence before him, it all felt so natural. A lot of our current technology, phones, computers, airplanes, ships, etc., would have been unimaginable 100 years ago. Zheng Fan was convincing Li Hong while also persuading himself. The phone rang, and Zheng Fan picked it up to see that it was Vice General Manager Zhang from the Aerospace Group. After connecting, an anxious voice came through. Mr. Zhang. 10 minutes ago, our control center lost contact with Expedition 2. We don't know if you can reach the satellite. Vice General Manager Zhang. Our crawling space laboratory is currently being deployed and will soon enter orbit without affecting other satellites in space. This collaboration has been very successful, and the final payment for the launch will be transferred to your designated account within 3 days. Zheng Fan hurriedly clarified, wanting to avoid any misunderstandings since the launch objectives had been achieved. That's good to hear. We were worried it was a fault with the temporary communication system of Expedition 2, and we still have a few hours until the expected separation. Our robot is quite sensitive to timing and doesn't want to glide for too long, so it performed the separation operation early and is now deploying the satellite. Everything is going smoothly. After dealing with Vice General Manager Zhang, Ho Chung also called to inquire about the situation. What's going on? Once that big satellite was launched, they started celebrating, and the TV stations stopped broadcasting. What about our small one? Was it not sent up with us? It has been launched, and Nuwa is currently deploying the satellite. It will soon enter orbit for experiments. The news not reporting it was my request. Let's keep a low profile until we achieve results. Zheng Fan patiently explained. I figured they wouldn't take the money without doing the work. Spending billions just to throw a metal box into space. How do you feel about it now? With mixed feelings, Zheng Fan replied. I really don't know if this is right or wrong. Haha, that amount of money is just a drop in the bucket for you. Consider it as setting off a big firework. Ho Cheng's words were unclear whether they were meant to mock or comfort him. After hanging up with Ho Cheng, the 3D projection showed Nuwa still assembling boxes, with more miniature robots crawling out and starting to make their way up the black needle tubes to the outside of the spherical space structure. The 3D projection zoomed out to display the scene on the outer side of the sphere, where these miniature robots began to arrange themselves on the sunlit side of the sphere. This time, they arranged in a tiled pattern, with countless miniature robots crawling out from the fine needles penetrating the sphere, slowly filling hexagonal grids facing the sun. Upon closer observation, Zheng Fan noticed that not all the grids were hexagonal, some were pentagonal as well. He couldn't quite understand why it was designed this way, but it must have its reasoning. On the shadowed side, fine needles began to emit streams of tiny ion flows, and the entire sphere's speed started to increase as it headed towards the predetermined orbit. It was already past 11 at night, exceeding their usual bedtime, and Li Hong began yawning frequently. How much longer until this laboratory is finished? It looks so boring. I'm going to sleep. It's still early, and we can't help much. I won't watch anymore. I'll check it out tomorrow. Zheng Fan and his wife went to sleep, while many others stayed awake all night due to the sudden appearance of the crawling space laboratory. In the 1950s, following the launch of the first artificial satellite by a certain nation to regulate satellite launch activities and prevent collisions, related countries established an International Space Research Committee. This committee stipulated that every artificial spacecraft launched by any country must be reported, after which a unique identification number would be issued, along with the publication of orbital data and other relevant information. Countries could access various details about the spacecraft using this identification number. After decades of development, this has become an international norm, and the task of assigning numbers is currently managed by the National Space Science Data Center governed by a prominent nation's space agency. As a dominant force in the global space sector, this nation has long held the top position in the number of satellites in orbit, accounting for more than half of the total number of satellites worldwide, surpassing the combined total of all other countries. Their various functional satellites not only monitor the Earth's surface, but also continuously track and observe satellites and spacecraft beyond Earth. The launch of the Long March 5 was, of course, under comprehensive monitoring. The monitoring network of this prominent nation far exceeds that of another country, and after the disappearance of a spacecraft, the latter completely lost contact with the information of its probe. The Space Force of this prominent nation utilizes a global network of radars, telescopes, and other optical monitoring systems, consisting of various functional satellites in high, medium, and low orbits, as part of a geosynchronous orbital space situational awareness program to closely observe this peculiar satellite. They were able to obtain precise location information of the probe and real-time monitoring images. However, given the distances between satellites in space, often hundreds or thousands of kilometers apart, even the most advanced optical satellites of this prominent nation could only capture a blurred image, with the initial probe appearing only a few pixels in size. Such a scale astonished the monitoring personnel. The information indicated that the probe was merely a small satellite, about 1 cubic meter, which suddenly increased in size within minutes, not due to solar panels opening, but rather a regular spherical expansion. Was this a new satellite technology experiment by another country? What surprised them even more was that this satellite suddenly accelerated and changed orbit without detecting any heat sources, then completely disappeared under various monitoring methods. All their monitoring techniques, optical, infrared, radar, simultaneously lost track of the satellite, which was even more alarming than its sudden increase in size. The sudden acceleration and disappearance suggested that this satellite could appear at any position in space at any moment. This was a special situation. Therefore, the Space Force commander, General Reed, who had just gone to bed, received the information immediately and had to get out of bed and hurriedly head to the command center to oversee this unique tracking operation. Chapter 194. Tracking. General Reed commanded numerous departments under the Space Force, mobilizing hundreds of reconnaissance satellites and various ground-based and sea-based radars, as well as deep space telescopes. They repeatedly scanned and probed along the predicted trajectory of the probe's disappearance, working tirelessly throughout the night, yet still found nothing. Many officers and soldiers in the Space Force Command feel extremely frustrated, as the field of artificial intelligence has already been overtaken by a certain country. Is it possible that the space domain, which they take pride in, will also fall behind? If more satellites like this are launched in the future, what will happen to their work? They won't even be able to track and monitor effectively, and their own satellites could easily be dealt with by the other side. When the crawlers were deployed, they did not separate from the Expedition 2. They disappeared together after just a few minutes. The Chief of Staff of the Space Force and General Red analyzed the situation. What are you trying to say? They were originally one entity. The frustrated Space Force commander retorted. The Expedition 2 still uses highly toxic propellants that they were planning to phase out, such as hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide. The last-minute increase in payload before this launch is clearly a sudden technical test. They used this equipment to ensure enough thrust. It should not be integrated with the crawlers and might instead be food prepared for the crawlers. The Chief of Staff's analysis was surprisingly close to the truth. They call it the crawlers. Could it really be a crawler? Which crawler can eat metal? Impossible. Red could not believe such an exaggerated scenario. Look at these photos. The Chief of Staff handed Red a stack of photos just delivered by the secretary. As the commander of the Space Force, quickly recognizing various satellite images has become a skill. He immediately identified that the photos were taken at the launch base in a certain country, where high-definition optical satellites not only captured all the buildings at the base clearly, but also some faces on the road, many of which could be identified. These photos were enlarged and annotated one by one. Each photo featured the same person, photos of them getting out of a car, walking on the road, entering the assembly building, and under the launch tower, along with some candid shots taken with a professional camera in other situations. Who is he? I recognize most experts in the space field from that country. He looks very young. Is he one of their rising stars? The Chief of Staff slapped his forehead. Oh my God, you don't even know him. This person is an inventor of artificial intelligence and autonomous driving, a key figure who has changed the global landscape. The overall market value of Nasdaq evaporated by nearly 30% because of his invention. Countless companies have gone bankrupt. How could he be at the launch base? Could the crawlers be his new achievement? Red quickly connected the dots. Who else could allow a last-minute increase in payload before a launch? Even their commander couldn't do that. Look closely at the earlier photos. The little girl following him into the assembly building was carrying a large box. In subsequent photos, neither the girl nor the box appeared again. The chief of staff pointed out to his superior. Does this hide some important information? According to insider information we received, this girl might be their latest type of robot, with an extremely high degree of realism, almost indistinguishable from a real person. The box she was carrying is likely the payload for this launch. This box probably contains the robot that was launched. This is simply unbelievable. Such a small box, a space robot. Let me think. Reed was struck by this information. What could a highly intelligent robot do in space? Their discussion had not yet reached a conclusion when a space officer responsible for searching shouted, "I found it." Its size has increased again. The white sphere stood out prominently against the dark backdrop of space. Where is it? Get other departments to quickly lock onto it and mobilize the nearest satellite to conduct close reconnaissance. We must understand how it achieved invisibility. General Reed remained calm and promptly issued a series of commands. The current position is on the orbit we reported. I am monitoring it using a satellite from a neighboring orbit. The officer replied. What is the current size of the crawling ship? The chief of staff asked. The diameter measured earlier was less than 15 feet, but now it has exceeded 65 feet. Reed and the chief of staff exchanged a glance, both wearing expressions of shock. The space military is a high-tech branch, where every soldier must have at least a bachelor's degree and be among the top performers. As their superiors, Reed and the chief of staff naturally had even higher intelligence and qualifications. A diameter increase of 4 times means a volume increase of nearly 100 times. This size is already much larger than the International Space Station. A 1 cubic meter box turning into this size, even if inflated, seems impossible. What technology are they using? Officer, how far is the satellite you control now? Reed inquired. Less than 200 miles. In 5 minutes, I will catch up to it. I can take pictures within visual range. The young officer knew this was a rare opportunity to make a name for himself in front of the two generals. Once you catch up, use the solar wings of your satellite to slice the sphere. Let us see what material it is made of. The satellite might be destroyed. That is not your concern. Follow orders. Officer. Yes, sir. The chief of staff had doubts about Reed's command, given the speed the crawling ship displayed when changing orbits. It could easily evade this impact. I want to force it to dodge and observe how it maneuvers up close. Losing it doesn't matter. It's not our satellite anyway, Reed said with a smug smile. The day after the satellite was launched was Saturday. Having gone to bed later than usual the night before, Li Hong didn't have to work, and Zheng Fan also unusually didn't wake up early for exercise. They both got up together around 7. With 2 bathrooms, they each busied themselves without disturbing the other. Zheng Fan quickly finished freshening up, and in the living room, the 3-dimensional projection continued to run, but the scene had dramatically changed. The projection from last night only displayed a giant outline of the Earth, but now the Earth was fully visible, transformed into a ping-pong ball-sized projection slowly rotating in the distance. The blue oceans occupied 2/3 of the surface. With white snow and glaciers at the poles, green-covered land, vast yellow deserts, and thick clouds that seemed to be moving and changing. This miniature Earth looked quite vibrant. Nearby, the outline of the sphere looked the same as yesterday, but now it had transformed into 2 interconnected spheres, a black sphere the size of a soccer ball on top, and a larger white sphere with a diameter of about 1 meter below. On the surface of the large sphere, patches of black areas were expanding at an almost imperceptible speed. As he leaned in for a closer look, Zheng Fan realized that these were likely miniature robots aligning themselves, appearing smaller due to 3-dimensional scaling, making them undetectable to the naked eye. They resembled a slow-moving black liquid. Zheng Fan swiped with 2 fingers at the edge of the projection, magnifying it, and his perspective instantly shifted to the interior of the large sphere. The internal structure of this massive sphere was similar to what he had seen yesterday, but it was much more expansive. To his surprise, the interior of the sphere was completely empty, except for a small metallic box hanging at the center, so tiny it was almost unnoticeable. Upon further magnification, he recognized that it was the rectangular metal box that had contained the item launched by Nuwa yesterday. Now, the box was open, and its contents were gone, leaving only an empty casing quietly floating there. Observing from the center, he realized how vast the internal space of the large sphere was. Zheng Fan zoomed out from the interior of the large sphere and refocused on the smaller sphere. Upon entering the small sphere, he found it had changed significantly since yesterday. At 1/3 of the bottom of the small sphere was a metallic platform where Nuwa stood at the center. Surrounding her waist was a circular experimental table, with the outer edge connected directly to the inner wall of the sphere, and the inner edge connected to supports and a platform beneath her feet. The table was lined with a dozen instruments of various sizes. Using Nuwa's height as a reference, Zheng Fan compared the sizes of these instruments and found them to be similar to those in a laboratory, given the current volume. He doubted her metal box could possibly hold so many items. Nuwa, how did you fit all these instruments into the box? Zheng Fan asked curiously. I only brought the core components and chips. The other bulky frames and parts can be reconstructed by the micro-robots. Nuwa replied without looking up. Focused on observing something with an ultra-low temperature scanning tunneling microscope, her hands busy with operation. Zheng Fan recognized this uniquely shaped device as one of the most expensive instruments purchased by Wu Qi, costing 5 million each, with only one manufacturer able to supply it. After their modifications, its performance had been enhanced to observe materials at the nanoscale. What's the current status of the laboratory? How long until we can enter orbit? We can't disrupt the operation of other satellites. Zheng Fan couldn't help but remind her. The laboratory is already operating at the center of our orbit. What if other satellites intrude and collide with us? Nuwa retorted. As long as we don't provoke others, they shouldn't provoke us. If it's an accidental intrusion, we issue a warning and drive them away. If it's hostile behavior, we must teach them a profound lesson. Otherwise, such incidents will keep occurring and become a nuisance. Zheng Fan advised. You can wait outside to see. A neighbor will be coming over soon, and I will give them a profound lesson. Nuwa waved her hand impatiently. So soon to come and test the waters? Zheng Fan felt their arrival was rather quick. Having visited the satellite systems of a certain country multiple times, and having already revealed his identity, Zheng Fan believed that the other party would not have any good intentions towards his satellite. Tracking and photographing were routine actions, and it wouldn't be surprising if they tried to collide and create a scene. They had done this more than once or twice, and were already habitual offenders. The 3D projection was centered on the crawling ship, with the distant Earth appearing rather small. The large sphere of the crawling ship was scaled down to the size of a volleyball, while the smaller spheres became about the size of quail eggs. Due to the relatively great distance, the scaling of the Earth didn't change much, and it was unclear what rules governed the scale of this 3D projection. As the scale increased, Zheng Fan indeed saw a satellite slowly approaching behind the crawling ship. This satellite appeared at the edge of the 3D projection, appearing no larger than a soybean, with its real volume likely even smaller than the small sphere. If it weren't for the two large solar panels, it would have been easily overlooked. Geostationary satellites can operate without their own propulsion, relying on Earth's gravity to fly at a speed of 3.08 kilometers per second. They can hover at a fixed position about 36,000 kilometers above the equator, continuously directing signals towards a specific area on Earth, synchronized with Earth's rotation, which is also the origin of their name. Due to various interferences in the space environment, such as solar wind and uneven gravitational gradients, satellites in geostationary orbit are not completely stationary and will exhibit some position drift over time. The International Telecommunication Union, which manages and allocates satellite orbits and spectrum resources, stipulates that each satellite is allowed a deviation angle of 0.1 degrees. Converted to distance in geostationary orbit, this is just a little over 60 kilometers. Exceeding this angle requires the satellite to activate its own propulsion for position correction to avoid collisions with other satellites. The approaching satellite behind the crawling ship continued to accelerate towards it, clearly not making a correction. At such close proximity, it was evident that they harbored ill intentions. According to its current trajectory, the solar panels of the satellite would definitely scrape against the large sphere of the crawling ship. Nuwa prepared to maneuver the crawling ship to evade, but the other party's solar panels, originally angled towards the sun, suddenly flipped to a position perpendicular to the large sphere. What was once just a suspicion was now openly hostile behavior, as if they were aiming for mutual destruction. Unfortunately, the other party underestimated the strength of the crawling ship. The large sphere gently rotated 180 degrees from left to right, revealing the black side covered in micro-robots towards the satellite. Then, ion beams were ejected from below, and the entire large sphere moved slightly upwards and stopped. At that moment, the satellite happened to fly directly beneath the large sphere. The large sphere rotated 90 degrees from top to bottom, slightly descended, and pressed down on one side of the satellite's solar panel, allowing a large number of micro-robots to drop onto the opposing satellite, due to the relative speed of the other party being quite fast. In order to mitigate the impact force, the large sphere began to spin using the thrust of the satellite's engine. The satellite, with the solar sail being pressed down by the large sphere as its pivot point, began to rotate synchronously alongside the large sphere, transforming from a geostationary satellite into a crawler-type geostationary satellite. 1 rotation, 2 rotations, 3 rotations. The large sphere's rotation gradually slowed down. After 10 rotations, the satellite's surface was completely covered by micro-robots. The engine shut down, and it continued to rotate a few more times due to inertia before finally coming to a stop. Several minutes later, this satellite completely disappeared from space, leaving no trace behind. 2/3 of the surface of the crawler-type large sphere had been dyed black, and in places where the micro-robots had been, a special coating was applied. This coating could redirect the majority of rays, light, and electromagnetic waves coming from various directions through a dense network on the sphere to be emitted from behind the sphere, achieving a stealth effect. This was also the reason why the space forces of a certain country suddenly lost track of the crawler-type satellite. The recent reckless probing by the space forces of that country ended with the satellite losing control and going missing. Although they still hadn't discovered the stealth secret of the crawler-type satellite, they had realized that this entity was definitely not to be trifled with, and their own satellites should keep a safe distance in the future. When the satellite from an island nation suddenly lost control and went missing, they then discovered an enormous super satellite in a neighboring orbit. This spherical satellite, named the crawler-type satellite, had a diameter of 20 meters and belonged to a technology company in a certain country. Consequently, the government of the island nation, acting like a wronged party, lodged a protest against the aforementioned country and publicly claimed that the new type of satellite had caused damage to their satellite, demanding compensation and severe sanctions against the technology company responsible for the satellite launch. In response, the aerospace group from the aforementioned country held a press conference to refute these claims and published detailed trajectory data of the two satellites launched and the missing satellite from Japan, indicating that the island nation's satellite had maliciously collided first, and thus, they should be the ones facing sanctions. The island government was required to provide a reasonable explanation and not attempt to confuse the issue or play the victim. With undeniable evidence presented, the island government had no choice but to back down and accept the loss quietly. Just as this incident seemed to be fading away, a certain country's Space Forces commander publicly stated that the launch of such a large satellite posed a substantial threat to other countries' satellites in geostationary orbit and called for detailed data and intended use to be disclosed to gain international understanding. In a short span of days, the crawler-type satellite became a hot topic in international news, with considerable promotion from that country and its allies. The narrative of space threat from the aforementioned country gained traction. Throughout this media whirlwind, the technology company behind the crawler-type satellite remained unresponsive, seemingly indifferent to the situation. As for a certain individual, he found himself with new tasks to attend to while staying at home, watching the crawler-type satellite gradually take shape. The associated entity was tirelessly conducting experiments, and he felt a sense of pride, knowing that he had invested a substantial amount of funds, contributing to the project's success. The crawling satellite has quickly become a star among enthusiasts obsessed with cosmic observation in various regions, thanks to the hype surrounding it. This enormous spherical satellite, with its unique and mysterious design, appears intermittently in geostationary orbit, making it a source of pride to have witnessed it firsthand. Amid the external noise and sensationalism, Zheng Fan, the person involved, has been following the news daily but feels no urgency this time. Instead, he experiences a sense of enjoyment, akin to watching a play from the audience. It's hard to describe, but he feels remarkably relaxed. While he remains calm, many are anxious on his behalf. The narrative of space threats, led by a certain country, has led to divided opinions domestically, with various factions engaging in endless debates. The dwindling public intellectuals align with international discourse, vigorously promoting claims that the technical details of the crawling satellite should be disclosed to prevent future incidents and safeguard international reputation. Conversely, many scoff at these arguments, pointing out that it was their unprovoked actions that led to the current predicament. Now that they've faced consequences, they are throwing tantrums and creating chaos. It's disheartening that, rather than defending their own, they turn against their own people. Most people, however, are mere spectators, enjoying the spectacle, waving flags, or criticizing one side or the other, resulting in a noisy and lively atmosphere that has dominated headlines for several days. As various domestic media outlets and independent journalists gathered information, they discovered that the entity at the center of this incident, the crawling technology company, is a private firm led by Zheng Fan, a rising star in the tech industry. His autonomous driving system has profoundly changed lives in just a year. Zheng Fan is far less known domestically than the company's founder Liu Yifan or other representatives like Gao Hua and Su Huiyun, who frequently attend events. Surprisingly, there isn't a single video or image of him being interviewed online. The only positive video is from a wedding, while all other footage and images have circulated from foreign sources. In this era of ubiquitous video content, his low profile is quite remarkable. The crawling technology company has received countless interview requests, and many unidentified independent media have gathered around the office building, hoping to catch a glimpse of him and ride the wave of hype. As the general manager, Chun Fei has been cornered several times, repeatedly stating that there's nothing to disclose, even complaining to Zheng Fan over the phone. Zheng Fan quietly feels relieved that his address hasn't been leaked. Otherwise, he would be the one facing the crowd. Interviews can be declined, and he can avoid the crowd, but when someone comes knocking, he can't ignore them. That day, Ho Cheng paid him a visit. You really know how to keep your cool. With all the buzz in the news, both domestic and international, you act as if nothing is happening. Impressive. Ho Cheng greeted him with a barrage of words as soon as he entered. Ignoring such things will make them fade away quickly. The more attention you give, the more persistent they become. The world is never short of sensational topics. And people's capacity to forget is swift. Zhang Fan has already become unflappable. You've been quite relaxed, haven't you? What position do you even hold? Just staying at home all day while others are calling me, treating me like your agent, asking for updates. The problem is, I don't know any more than those people outside. How's our satellite doing? Why does it keep disappearing and reappearing? Is it damaged or has it been broken and not repaired? Ho Chung inquired. Take a look for yourself. Zhang Fan motioned him to the sofa and started the projection. Is this the satellite? Why is it black? All the pictures I saw online show a big white sphere. And there's a tiny one on top that's hard to notice. Ho Chung was astonished.